Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the June 10th, 2019 Operations Committee meeting. And the first item of business is acceptance of the minutes of the May 13th, 2019 meeting. Are there any corrections, additions, deletions? Yes, Mrs. Raccio.
I had a question on page 3, and I should have gotten this to you earlier, Sal. On the first paragraph, there was a possibility to go out to bid for specific communication service. I thought we were possibly going out to bid for grant service, not a communication service, grant writing. Did I miss something?
I don't recall, to be honest. I have to go back to
Yeah,
because these
Are
are
we-
taken from the video, so.
yeah.
Yes.
Are we going out to bid for a
No, I thought it was
communication service?
communications, to be honest.
Yes.
We are?
We talked about contract, per diem stuff.
Yeah, I was
Oh.
gonna do I think it was a two-part bid, or something to that effect to get an hourly rate for
Okay,
somebody.
okay, that was my only question, that I didn't remember that, sorry.
Which, that won't come at the beginning of the summer. That'll come at the,
Yeah,
near the end of the summer.
That was my only question.
Okay, any other remarks about these minutes? Seeing none, we'll take consensus, starting with Mrs. Corso.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
And yes, thank you. And the next item of business is discussion and possible consensus of the strategic plan updates. So you have A1 through A8.
We just wanted to, and we didn't go, we don't plan to go through each of these individually. But again, if there are questions, or we always do this at the end of the year, we just give you a final update. These get posted to the website tomorrow. But just in terms of any of the questions, we can respond at this time, but we're not gonna, and I don't think you would want us to go through page by page.
Okay, Mrs. Raccio, followed by Mrs. Castelli.
Just on the communications, are we gonna be able to move forward with the My Payment Plus to do that
We're
for
doing it-
sports and?
We're doing a different system. I don't know, Mr. Barone, do you want to, and Ms. Vayu, you've been working on that.
So we are,
You were on.
we are going to, in the process of rescheduling training because it's been a while. As you know, the system was used and set up, but only used for a few things. So I'm working with the athletic directors on setting that up to collect payments. We're hoping it's going to be by the spring, but hopefully, we're aiming for the spring, but we're hoping to have it sooner. Everything done and started.
Do you know if we're gonna look at all of the options? Because it would do the fees for like AP classes and all that, and then do a class roster.
Yeah, we're going to start with athletics and then
Okay.
move on from
Okay.
there.
Thank you. Yay.
But we are interested in
That makes
looking
me
at
happy.
other options.
Mrs. Castelli?
Yes, we can get rid of all the previous stuff. I just want to say thank you to Sal and all the administrators that continue every year to keep this document a living, breathing document. It doesn't sit on the shelf. Having spent many years in my previous role at Anthem, projects would generate paper like this, and then it would get shoved on a shelf and never addressed again. This is unique in that we continue year after year to have a 3-year strategic plan available for anyone in town to take a look at and give us feedback if they want. But again, thank you to all people that are involved in this. I know this is not an easy thing to keep current, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
No, and Kathy, I appreciate you extending those thoughts, because this is a team effort, and I truly cannot thank the rest of the team for their support. Tony Loomis does the district climate one. We have Carrie, who does curriculum instruction. Obviously, Karen does technology, facilities, and maintenance comes from Mark, and then I work in collaboration with Danielle and others on the community outreach and partnerships. And it really, I am proud of that. I think anywhere we go, and Roxanne and I have been to a lot of places, there is not, I will stake claim to this, there is not another district in this country, I would believe, that does this much work on their district strategic plan every year. And I think it does, I was asked, when we've been asked, I think it does keep us focused. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. We always have opportunities, but it does keep us focused. And I think that's the whole idea. So we've been able to accomplish a lot. We've been able to accomplish a lot as a district. And I think when this segues into the discussion of special ed programming, you're going to really see how the work that we've been able to do in the strategic plan has allowed us to do and add programming and services to our students who have significant needs. So I appreciate that compliment, but it's really a team effort. It's the coordinators giving information to the curriculum department and assistant superintendents. It's the teachers continue to work in the steering committees. It's the administrators all working together. This is not one person, and I appreciate you drawing attention to that.
Mrs. McKay?
Yeah, actually, Kathy, you stole my thunder. I was going to say the exact same thing, and I do talk to, I interact with a lot of statewide chairs that, and Sal, you're exactly right, that are envious over the fact that our strategic plan is an active, live entity that, and if anybody really has any concerns or questions or where's the district going or what's the plan or whatever, it's easily available and it's there, and we hold all stakeholders accountable, which is not the norm. So
Since 2010, and they're
Yeah.
all on the website.
yeah,
So
it's
nobody can say that there's been any hidden agendas
right,
or,
right,
it's been there.
You know, when you hear about districts that are dealing with a lot of angst and, animosity and internal issues, I guarantee you, they don't have, there's no rudder in their ship. There's no direction, and that's the difference, is when you've got a plan that's in place, you may not like it or want it, but it's there and it's indisputable. It's a direction, and we all are going in that mode, and that does not happen in other districts. So, thanks, Kathy, for saying that. But as somebody that interacts with a lot of state people, board chairs, we are so blessed, the commitment that we have as a district. So I too want to say thank you. That's all. Thank you.
And again, if there are any other technical issues or anything you want to follow up on, just shoot us emails. We'll be happy to do that. But we do try to get this up. It'll be up, if not tomorrow, by the end of the week, it'll be on the website. And they're all documented there. But we do believe this is an important document. And I think the other document this ties nicely into, which is done at a similar time frame, is our annual review, our annual report to the town, which I think everybody, if you look at the history of that document has gotten significantly comprehensive. And I'm very proud, again, it's a team effort for everybody working on that.
I would like to say that I'm very excited about, if you look at item 3A2, the community partnerships, just the notion of beginning to investigate a pipeline program for students age 22 plus, who are aging out of our school district, in concert with the Department of Developmental Services and Rehab Services, because it's a tough transition going from the school district to finding day program services for this population, and meaningful services as far as looking for employment opportunities or other opportunities in the community. And to look into this, I think, is a huge plus for our school district to go forward with. Very exciting. The other thing I'd like to comment on was there was another issue, I think it was in A8, the special education. And I think one of the points that's made in here is, and it's very important and it's ongoing, is to communicate evaluation results with parents before planning and placement team meetings. That's very, very important, so that there's an understanding of what the results are prior to that planning and placement team meeting going forward.
Yeah, we're very pleased. We met, the central office team met with Amy last week, and we shared with her the complete document, and we said that this is really, we obviously want her to mold the document to be her own. However, we wanted this to be her guidance for her as the director of special education coming into the district, so that she knew that these were important issues for us, and that we wanted to make sure that she could kind of separate herself from having created the plan, and she's basically carrying it out. Again, knowing that over time she'll add to it herself.
Right.
But really, we see these as her direct, responsibilities at this point. And we felt we needed to be a little bit more definitive. And I think, again, while it was a challenging year for the central office and others in the district, I think it was an important year because we really got to see special ed, as from the next part of the agenda, you'll understand, we got to see it in a very different light. And I think as a result, there are a tremendous amount of great things that we're poised for come the fall of 2019 and very excited about.
Great, great. Are there any other remarks on item 3A, A1 through A8? Seeing none, we'll take consensus, starting with Mrs. Corso.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
And yes, thank you. Now we're on to 3B, presentation of special education programming.
Yes, I have a sheet coming around for you. That we put together, just regarding it. There's more. I'm sorry. That it's to remind you of the programs we have, but also then highlight some of the new programs, but also kind of share with you the continuum, because I think sometimes you'll hear about a program and you're like, well, where does that fit in? And I think that's one of the key things that we did this year, was really look at the continuum of services based on the needs of students. So obviously, we have our preschool programming for special ed, our integrated preschool. It's at Cook Hill Elementary School. This coming fall, we are moving some of the classrooms out of the portables into the body of the school, as we call it, the main building. Because the principal of each of these schools that has specialized programming is going to be the person in charge of those programs. So Ms. Friend will be the person responsible for integrated preschool in collaboration with special ed, but she'll be the main person who's the lead of that. So symbolically, we felt it was necessary and appropriate to move some of the classrooms from the portables, because they've been kind of just in the portable area, move them into the building so it's more truly an integrated program. And Carrie, I have to say, has been the leader of really evaluating the integrated preschool this year, and really giving that outside opinion as to what needs to be changed. So we're really, I think we're all very, very excited about how that's going to impact our students in a positive way, as well as professional development for teachers, all of that collaboration. So I started with our youngest. The next part, we have our social and emotional programming. So we have, it was Harvest Park. It really isn't Harvest Park because Harvest Park was a building.
Right.
So it was supposed to be called WISE. And so we had the K2 program, as you know, we started last year. We now have 2 teachers. That's moving over to Highland, and it's going to have its own pod. The pods at Highland and at Rock Hill are great because you could have there's 3 classrooms. So it gives us 2 classrooms. It gives us space for social work, psychologist work, as well as small group work. It gives them a confined space with their own bathrooms. But the key thing is that it's at a school that's actually age appropriate. Originally, we had a classroom at Fritz, which is 3-5, so that made it difficult for K2, and then we had our second classroom at Moses Y, which was more appropriate, but we're combining them together at Highland together for the resources. So they'll have the same amount of resources, and again, the resources of social worker and psychologists as well. The WISE 3-5 will stay at Fritz, but again, we're not going to have them be the last people to stay in that section of the building where PPS is vacating. So they'll be in the main core part of the building as well, to integrate them. And Mr. Carbone will be in charge of that program as well. He'll be, again, leading it with the assistance of the special ed. Yep.
How many teachers for that one?
That program has presently 1 teacher, and I believe 2 paraeducators, and then I'll have a part-time psychologist, part-time social worker.
Going back to the integrated preschool, how
Yep.
many classrooms do we have there now? 4?
No, we have 6 classrooms at
Oh,
the
wow.
integrated
They're
preschools.
all in those portables?
Yes, but
One
they
was
won't be next year. We're moving the 4-year-olds into the main part of the building, so with the preschool class that's already existing at Cook Hill School, there'll be a grade level team for 4-year-old preschool. And then there are 2 classrooms for 3-year-olds, and then there are 2 classrooms that are ABA classrooms, so they're more specialized for our neediest preschoolers. So there's 6 classrooms total that make up the integrated pre-K.
So there'll be 2 4-year-old classrooms.
2 4-year-old classrooms, both will be full day next year. The 2 3-year-old classrooms will be half-day classrooms, so there'll be an AM and a PM session, so it's 4 classes of 3-year-olds.
And all 6 will be, there's room in Cook Hill for these?
So we've separated out, the 3-year-old students will stay up in the portables, because for drop-off and pickup, it's just a little bit easier with the separate entrance. The 4-year-olds will be in the main part of the building. Some of the interventionists and other specialists in the Cook Hill main part of the building will be moving up to the portables. So Chris Friend is kind of moving everyone around to keep grade levels together, and to just foster more communication and collaboration between the teachers.
And the 3rd class, what did you say that was?
Those are our ABA classrooms, so the class sizes in those 2 classrooms are a little bit smaller. There is 1 3-year-old room and 1 4-year-old room. The 4-year-old room is an extended day, so the students will come at the same time, the arrival, and they won't stay the full day, but they'll stay till about 1:30
My
in
only
the
concern
afternoon.
is, are they near each other?
Yes,
Because sometimes the services overlap, correct?
yep. So,
Well, all right. Okay. So the only people staying in the portables are the 3-year-olds, the half-day program.
yes, and then
And
some
the
of the
specialists,
providers, so
yeah.
speech and language will still be up
Yeah.
there, the OT-PT room will be up there.
And Chris Friend will be in charge of that whole thing,
Mhm.
okay?
Mrs. McKay?
So, more for TV land, how are students selected for this programming?
So for preschool in general, we have a screening process. We did 6 full days of screening. We screened over 180 4-year-olds. We use a standardized measure called the Dial-4 to get a baseline for their motor skills, their concept skills, and their language skills. The preschool team throughout the district are the screeners of our students.
Makes sense.
For 3-year-olds, we also changed the process a little bit this year. There was a play-based observation, and they did the speed dial, which is a quicker version of the Dial-4.
Okay.
Again, we're looking for, depending on the classroom, students, we want to make sure that early intervention is in the forefront of our minds, so that we're
Right.
looking for students who need that preschool experience. And then for our typically developing peers, for some of our integrated classrooms, we're looking for students with strong language skills,
Okay.
strong social skills, to be able to provide that model for all of our students.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Those letters are going out this week.
Oh,
So,
bittersweet, I imagine. Yeah.
so as you move along, the arts middle school program, it's at Lyman Hall. That's been in existence for several years now. And then the high school program, which you're aware of, at Lyman Hall. EEP is, we do have some special ed students in the EEP program. That's at Sheehan High School, but predominantly the students are there for other impactors that have basically not permitted them to be as successful in a comprehensive high school setting. So that's still at Sheehan High School. So at Lyman Hall, Mr. Corso and his team intervene if there's a need in that area. And that's been going on for a couple of years now. And again, Sheehan, which is the alternative high school, it's called EEP. That is where the administrative team at Sheehan intervenes, and we also utilize the resources in both those schools, be it the counseling staff, as well as the social workers. They do have psychologists and social workers, but if we need additional, they work together as a team.
So that's the alternative program?
Yes, it's always
I
been
never
called,
heard it called.
yeah, no, that's the way it's in the budget, but it's in educational enhancement program.
How many kids are in there now?
It ranges, it starts the year out a little bit low, and then at the end of the year, it gets a little higher, probably about, I would say 17, 18 kids, or around that, it's a high number. And then it's in the low 20s now?
I
Okay.
was gonna say, that was kinda low, 18.
Yeah. But we've grown, that's the good part about that program, which, board
If
members.
there are less kids, that's good.
Yeah,
too.
well, and it is, but we've also really made that program whole, so to speak, because we do have an English teacher, a social studies teacher, we have a science teacher, we have a math teacher. We made it, I have to say, a full-fledged program. When it was prior, it served its children well, but we need to expand it. And I think that they have a full-time psychologist. So we really tried to, we heard when we did the first risky behavior survey, remember, and there was a concern about, are we offering enough social services and support services? We hired a full-time psychologist that year with your support, and then they have access to social workers, the guidance counselor, or the school counselors, and all of the personnel there. So that's a real, I have to say, that's a proud point of the district that we have that, and it's functioning as well as it does.
And that's in the old superintendent's office.
Yep, yep.
That area.
That whole area where transportation, Board of Ed, old Board of Ed conference room, curriculum, that whole area. So that moves down to our autism spectrum programming. We have STARS K2, which is at Stevens Elementary School. We're gonna have 3 classrooms next year. We had only 2 classrooms this year. We're gonna have 3 classrooms. We're gonna have a K, a 1, and a 2. We're dividing the students out because we have about 15 or so students, and we felt that we wanted smaller settings for those schools. For those students in that school. So that's going to be 3 classrooms, and then the Pond Hill program is going to be 2 classrooms. The difference we also made in this year is that they had presently been served by a psychologist, and when we did an analysis, the psychologists really, their behaviors are more about behavioral behaviors that would be dealt better with our BCBA. So our BCBA is going to be situated between those programs. One of our 2 BCBAs, because we successfully, as you know, a couple weeks ago, hired the second one, which is going to be on the Highland side of town, so helping with the K2 and the 3-5 over there. So we felt that, in reviewing it, and it's just one of those things, as you go through programs develop, that the psychologist did a great job. However, the fact is that really their needs are BCBA related. It's not a psychologist-related position. So that's where we switched the psychologist to the behavior program, the WISE program, which made more sense, and had the BCBA in this program. So it just those little adjustments, but they make sense. But it takes time to think those through. And again, I can't thank the whole central office team as well as Donna Curtis and Lisa Baker for their support. That leads into the Inspire program at the middle school, which is at DAG. And then the high school Inspire program, which is at Lyman Hall. The exciting thing about the Inspire program at Lyman Hall is that we're opening up a functional life skills classroom. So we're going to have a kitchen, we're going to have laundry, all of that at the high school. So pre-iced tea, so to speak. And they're going to have that. And so that's actually being put in. We had some surprise deliveries from Home Depot last week. And everybody was like, where are they going? But we're in the process. We're also putting in, as you remember, washers and dryers to the McKinney-Vento grant at DAG and Stevens as a pilot with Lyman Hall to help our students who are homeless. And so we're going to be working on that as well. So the Inspire programs, and we added a 0.5 for Inspire because we do have a large group of students at Lyman Hall next year in that program. I want to say it's upwards of 15. So we do have a 0.5 that will be going between Inspire and Iced Tea.
Is it between the 2, or if you are in Inspire 6-8, is it something automatic that you go into the 9-12?
It depends. It depends. Some students, they go in it, but maybe not full-time.
Okay.
So they might be out in the mainstream more often. Really, none of the students, I should say, are in it full-time. When they get to the high school, it is more of an inclusive program, but it just depends on how much they need for functional life skills. That's really what it comes down to, the individual student's IEP. So there are some that are in it more than others because of the developmental opportunities. So now what you're going to see here is something that we have 2 new programs. You knew about that we had the ABC program that's run by Ben Haven. That program is for students who are autism, but they have higher needs. And they might have multiple needs. So it's autism plus other impairments. And so what we need to do is it wasn't the right fit to have them go into the STARS program. It wasn't the right fit to have them go into the Inspire program because their needs were beyond the typical students in those programs. So the reality was that we felt the 3-5 ABC program at Fritz was so successful, extremely successful, that we reached out and we said, okay, could you do a pre-ABC kind of scenario at K2? And could you do the 3-5, because we have students who are moving into the middle school. So we've contracted with them. I have to say, it's the right thing to do for students, because this provides them with the high-level BCBA support, the high-level BT, behavioral technician support, and the classroom teachers that have been trained to really, really offer the highest level services for these students and keeping them in district. But with a program that we could never replicate with our staff, not that we don't have great teachers, but there's a different level of expertise.
Yes.
So what ended up happening is we had a teacher retire at Cook Hill. We were kind of piecing a program together for the last 3 or 4 years. And it just, again, we found at the end of the year, the students weren't where we thought they would be, and then it was like we were at a fork in the road. And so we didn't know where to go with that. So because we were able, that person retired, we felt, okay, this is a great opportunity. So it wasn't really an additional cost to the budget. It was just a transferring of the cost of the teacher to outside services rather than keeping it inside. And so we're really, this is probably one of the most exciting aspects of this whole plan, because we really believe we now have appropriate channels for students to travel through within our system. Not to say that there might be some students, unfortunately, that we just won't have the ability to provide the services within district, but we believe we have other layers now to do so.
Yeah, Mike?
Go ahead, you can go first.
Mr.
I
Votto,
just
did you have
wanted to
something
know,
to say?
I forgot the question. The K-2, that's one classroom at Cook
Yes,
Hill?
yes, one classroom.
And the teacher is paid,
The teacher is paid through our budget, but is
But
hired by
hired
Ben
by
Haven
Ben
and
Haven.
supervised by Ben Haven, trained by Ben Haven, comes in and, they're actually going to, I think, and I can't say, we're utilizing, services this summer for summer school. And I'm not certain it's gonna be the same teacher, but they're trying to make that happen for us. So it'll be a transition opportunity for those students.
I think that's good.
And then we have a bridge right from there to the 3-5 program
Right.
and then the middle school program. We might have to, and this is because we're growing as this grows, we're growing the program. We might end up having
High school.
a similar high school program. And the parents develop a relationship with not only our staff, but
Yes.
also with them,
Yes.
which is fantastic.
I'm very excited to see this programming because I, as you know, have a lot of connections at Ben Haven. I know that program well, and to have an in-district program with an entity like Ben Haven that has years and years of experience with this population, especially a high-need population, I think it's to our credit to have it in-district and to provide that, because that keeps our students to the best of our ability, if they're able to, in district with typical peers and having those opportunities to interact with them, which I think is extremely important.
Absolutely. No, so we're very fortunate that I think that worked out very, very well. Linda Grimm, the director over there, has been phenomenally
great.
supportive.
She's great.
She was out for a bit, and she's still, we were calling by cell phone and checking in with each other. So she's really excited about this because she was here, obviously she's been here a while, so she saw the initial program and she always in her mind had a dream, but it's not for her to tell us what to do. And whenever we came to her and we said, the 6 to 8 was a no-brainer, and then we're like, well, could we talk about a K2? And she was like, oh my God, I'm so glad you asked. And it blew up. It was just perfect the way it happened. And again, it's team effort. We sit on Wednesday mornings, not idly, that's for certain. We sit and we process these ideas. We look at students. We know the faces of these individuals that we need to put in these places. So we're really excited by this. 18, 21-year-old program, we already know ICE-T is doing very, very well. It's still at Ashler Village and Masonic. That went very, very well. The residents there are extremely accepting. Residents showed up to the breakfast. And they were, Roxanne was at the table.
I have to say, I go to that brunch every year. I kind of forgot that we moved it up to Ashler Village. The reception we got, they love our kids, and our kids love them, and it's clearly a match. It's insane what a positive experience that is for everybody that participates.
Yeah.
I walked away from that so it just, I like welled up and teared up through that whole brunch. The speeches, and it was very inspiring experience. That's all I can say.
So as Karen alluded to earlier, I mentioned earlier, we're in the process of finalizing. We have been approved. Now we just need to work out the other elements, but to be a 22 to 25-year-old provider. So
amazing.
Lisa Baker, to her credit, is working very hard. So we're hoping to retain potentially 2 to 4 of our 21-year-olds that are graduating out. And their parents actually came up to me after the breakfast
believe it.
and said, because I said we're so excited that we're going to be able to do this. So we had 3 of them right there. We need to make our students stay here. They love the teachers. They love the job sites are phenomenal. So we're hopeful that we'll be able to maintain at least 3. Our goal was to have 5 students, just to, we didn't want to overdo it the first year.
Right.
But we do have the added 0.5. As I mentioned, 0.5 will be through the Inspire program at Lyman Hall, and the other 0.5 at ICE-T. So we see this as, I didn't know what else, so I'm really creative, ICE-T plus. We do really see this as a great opportunity.
What do you see as the major program for 22 to 25? What's going to make it different from the 18 to 21?
Well, what we're trying to do is it's going to be, we have to look at the individual student needs, obviously. Most of them are going to be past the daily life skills. So it's going to be predominantly all work development and making sure the goal is at 25 that when they leave our program, they are employed. That's our goal. That's our goal. And actually, I had a meeting today. Kate O'Donnell, who's in the audience, was with me in Hartford, and we're working with the Women in Innovation through the Connecticut Technology Council to actually potentially provide, now that we have this program in place, a pilot program in the area of manufacturing and technology for some of our 22 to 25-year-olds. And there's a graduate this year in the ICT program who will be a perfect fit.
So at 25, as soon as they turn 25, they're out of the program? Is that how it's going to work?
Well,
By their birthday?
It depends on the birthday. It's like the same thing with the 21-year-old program. So that's the way that I understand it from the state. I could be wrong, Mike.
No,
I'm learning.
Just
I'm learning. But we have to check on transportation and such, those other resources. But we do obviously get the tuition from the state to cover expenditures.
Mrs. Castelli?
I do have another comment that I want to make when you're completely finished, but
Sure.
for right now, just regarding this ICT Plus program, I believe if my conversation with you prior, last week, I think we talked about this, that the funds for this are negligible for us because it's going to
Yeah, the state, because we're a provider, so the state contracts with us. The state would contract with other providers, so then we will receive reimbursement for the students who are in the program. So it's a cost-neutral opportunity, but it gives us the ability to keep our students longer in our community. We know we have great partnerships with our businesses, and we want them to continue to foster those.
I thought it was important for our taxpayers to know.
Oh, yes, this is not like we're going above what we're supposed to do statutorily. This is actually us, yes, we are going above what we're doing,
Yes.
what we're supposed to do statutorily, but not at the cost of additional Wallingford taxpayer dollars. So thank
And
you.
really, it speaks to the partnerships of the businesses.
Oh, absolutely.
They want to just.
That was
keep
part of our
these-
application.
Yeah, is that true? Yeah.
Yeah, that was part of our application,
Yeah.
so.
It's amazing.
So to clarify, now the Department of Developmental Services is funding this? Or what entity at the state? Is it Bureau of Rehab Services or DOORS?
It's a combination.
Okay,
So it's DOORS, it's BRS,
Yeah.
it's a variety, because they're required, as you know, when they transition to 22,
right.
we still have to find them another
Day-type
environment-
program, yes.
environment for them to learn and grow.
Right,
So they oftentimes will go into other programs, but as we know, those programs have been somewhat cut, or the ability to put them in programs don't
Yes.
exist. So that's why we approached and we said, okay, we're willing to do this, transferring the services.
yes, it's very difficult to find programming that's appropriate for this population
Correct.
as they age out of the school district.
Correct.
Oh,
So the last part, oh, I'm sorry.
Actually, I was just going to say, I don't know if there's room in your cap for another feather, but.
No, no.
Honestly, I think the public should know that Sal was the one who approached the state with this idea, and they jumped on it because we are the only district in the entire state that will now have a program 23 to 25, and that's kudos to you, Sal.
Thank you. No, it's the right thing to do, and we have great people in the program in our district, so makes it easier. The last part of this, which is another exciting piece, I already said that we hired this. Oh, I'm
If-
sorry.
Mrs.
I
Corso has
apologize.
a
I'm sorry.
remark.
Okay, just a quick question. I'm trying to kind of get a map in my head of when students go through integrated preschool, they're at Cook Hill. And then from there, they're often, graduate into some of these programs that we're talking about, correct?
Potentially.
Potentially. So let's say a student who goes from Cook Hill preschool, then they go to Wise K2, then they go to Highland, correct? And then they're going 3 through 5 at Fritz, and then they go straight over to Lyman Hall. Why is there not a middle school program?
We
Or a
tried to have.
middle school facility, I should
To
say.
be honest, we tried the middle school program at DAG this year, and because of the staffing constraints, and it wasn't we had the appropriate staff. It's just that there's a lot of different levels of need in the middle school program. It was just not the right fit for the middle school environment. It wasn't the right fit for the students, and the parents both agreed.
I'm just think about my 5th grader who would then go into Lyman Hall, for like specials for gym. How are they
We still
serviced
do
through
that. We
way?
service that. We have a separate PE. We have separate specials classes that come to them or they go to. They can still go over to DAG to utilize services. So we've always, just to give you a farther back history from when I got here, they used to all be over in the same building in the Harvest Park building. So that was middle school and high school in an office setting. They really never came over on school campuses.
No.
Students at the high school level maybe bust over for a class, very, very seldom. So when we moved them over to Lyman Hall, we just had the high school. Then we developed the middle school program because the space lent itself, and it was able to collaborate the services. There are very few middle school students, but again, the needs with the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade really didn't work the way we wanted it to for students in the middle school setting. So they do get their specials. They do get all their academics. There's obviously the full-time social worker and psychologist there if needed. And I think that we actually went to the staff because to be honest, I was the one last year who said, we need to put it back at the middle school. That's where they should be. This year they came to us mid-year and they said, we respectfully disagree. They were better served with the high school students at Lyman Hall in their section. And this staff is a veteran staff, and I have to agree that they were right.
Thank you.
No worries. So the last part is our structured literacy initiative. This again is exciting because one of the areas that we always talk about is the fact that if students can't read on grade level by grade 3, we're not setting them up for the best success possible. So we have contracted, you all know we went out to a competitive bid, 2-part bid. Carrie helped facilitate the interviews. We've contracted with Literacy How, which is a phenomenal resource. They're probably the premier literacy group in the state of Connecticut. So what they will do is they will be training 30 teachers a year for the next 3 to 5 years in structured literacy approach. And this is general education teachers, special education teachers, interventionists, K-12. So this is not just an elementary initiative or a middle school initiative. So this is a K-12 initiative. We're starting with training teachers this summer in our summer school program. So there'll be the seed groups that they'll actually work with students in a lab setting because the students will be there, so they'll be able to work in that environment. And then throughout the course of the year, as we pick up the other teachers, again, it's embedded. They're not going to go out of district to learn the strategies. They're going to learn them with their own students in their classroom so that other teachers could come in, have the satellite classrooms, have the lab-based classrooms, so we grow that way. The other part of Literacy How, their contract now is such that they will be the board's advocate at meetings with parents regarding anything to do with literacy. So they will be contracted by the Board of Education in their role to work on our behalf at these meetings to address any concerns that parents may have. And we believe that, again, one of the key things they're going to do, one of the first things they're going to do is make sure that we have a clearly articulated understanding of what is reading. What does reading mean? What is the reading philosophy in Wallingford? And then bring that back out so that they'll have the substance to help our staff continue to grow in their capacity, and they'll have the ability to articulate that to families or to other practitioners that might have concerns, be it our staff or others. So we're really excited. They're a phenomenally valuable resource. That is also coincided with the last thing on the list, which is and I think we've successfully identified 2 special education teachers that come to us with Wilson or Orton Gillingham, which are 2 approaches to literacy development that we're hiring, one for each middle school, to act as a reading specialist with a special ed background. So to actually pull students out or to have an opportunity to have a little bit more flexible schedule. The challenge that we have is at the middle school, because the schedule is a little clunky, like all levels, we needed to make sure we identified a separate person that didn't have to worry about being on a team, didn't have to worry about different structures to be able to do this. So we're not pulling a student out of something that they really like or that they need just because that's the only time the person's available. So we can't have split staff members between one school and another school. It just doesn't work. So we felt the need, and we had the ability to do this financially this year, to hire one for each school. The idea is that hopefully they won't have to stay there forever, that this year they might be in middle school, next year they might be at a different level, whatever happens as we move forward. But we tried, and we've had people who have tried and done great jobs of splitting themselves up 6 ways to Sunday or 7 ways to Sunday, but it doesn't work because you miss opportunities, because they're at one building and then they have to travel to another building. We have to give them travel time, and then they have to get into the game, and it's just not efficient use of staff that is really good staff, but they'd be better if they're in one location. So that's why we felt this would be a clean way of doing it. And they'll be part of the team with Literacy How, of course, getting higher level training.
Mrs. Castelli, followed by Mr. Votto.
So I just want to, again, I'm in a thankful mood tonight, it seems. But thank you for this amazing document. I'm taking your thunder now, sorry.
And literacy, I have to say, Ms. Latour has been all over this, so.
Well, I don't think I've ever seen a document in all my years on the board that really spelled out all of the special programs that we do have.
Yeah.
And I want to tie it right back to our mission statement, which is what we should be doing with everything we do. And that is to inspire, educate, and support all students as they discover and pursue their personal best. This is the proof of the pudding that says we are doing for our students, every one of our students, the best job that we possibly can. And for the taxpayers, again, this is a savings because we're doing these programs in-house, which would have cost us so much more to send these kids out of district, which is the last thing we really want to do. We want to keep these kids close to home.
And we still have improvements to make.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is not a finished product.
I
We can improve
understand,
everything.
but let's take credit where credit is due. We are doing, I think, a pretty darn phenomenal job with these kids. And thank you again to everybody involved in making sure that we are meeting the needs of all our kids.
I think the key thing is that we want to have as comprehensive approach as possible. And I think that as I was putting this together, and I started with the youngest it just flowed. It made sense because if you go in my office right now, you'll see on my whiteboards, we have more iterations of what we were going to do. And we would take pictures because somebody would go erase it and then we would lose our thoughts. So we always had our cell phones out taking pictures. Those are the pictures that we have on our cell phones, not of fun things. But the reality is that this is still a work in progress, and I appreciate the sentiment. But we do have to flesh this out. And the key thing is that now that we have these in place, we have to make sure that the people who are in these programs, the adults, are doing what they need to do. And I'm confident that we have those people who can do it. We need to support them also. Mm-hmm. We've also, I didn't put the staffing on here because, to be honest, it's still in flux because we're always, if we have another student, we've come up with a rule. Most of these programs, when you look at our behavioral programs, our STARS programs, our INSPIRE programs, it's almost one-to-one support. Not exactly one-to-one in every environment, but there is a tremendous amount of support. which I think is another credit for us to be able to do this in district, and we didn't cut any other programs. You know, we didn't do one thing, like, it's not like we took from this bucket and put in another bucket, which I think is good. So we do have still work to do, but I know each year we'll get better. So,
Mr. Votto?
Yeah, going back to the literacy how, the how is an acronym for a company or something?
it's the name of the company.
That's the name of the company?
Yeah, it's the name of the company.
And there, you mentioned there's gonna be so many teachers trained at
Each
one-
year, 30 teachers a year, on the structured literacy approach, because it's not a program. We're not training them on Wilson or Orton Gillingham or Spire.
Just on
We're
the approach in teaching phonics and all that kind of
all
stuff.
the tools. So then you could apply it to any student who
And
comes
that's gonna be K-12.
K-12.
When will those teachers be trained?
There's
During the school
there's going to
day,
be
after
some
school?
there's going to be some during the summer, and then it'll be during the school day. It'll be after school. It'll be a variety of different settings. Some of the professional development time, early release time. We really looked at. I think we have about 3 or 4 different settings in which they're going to get their training. We also want the Literacy How consultants to go to faculty meetings and help the teachers be able to share it with their other staff members that haven't been trained yet, but bringing them on board to the philosophy.
This training will take part over the whole year?
Yeah, it'll be a whole year for a
Wow,
cohort of
pretty
30
intense then,
teachers.
huh?
Oh, yeah.
Like, just like I.
Just like you had when you
Well,
were teaching.
When I was in college, I switched K-12, okay. As far as the, what was I gonna say about the reading specialist? You mentioned something about the schedule.
Yes, that we're trying, I
The
allocated.
kids will go for this during what time?
It depends on the student. It'll depend on the schedule. It depends on, but it gives us more flexibility so we're not having the conflicts that we've had in the past. Because we've had some times where it's been in conflict and it hasn't been in the best interest of the student when they've been pulled.
So
So
if
this
it's a
gives us much
child-
more
It's
flexibility.
not just special ed children, or is it? That would get to
No.
Wilson,
No,
for instance.
no.
And that'll be done during maybe their language arts period or something like that?
Not necessarily. I mean, we probably wouldn't do it during language arts. We might look at a different time. I mean, again,
Math, maybe.
it's really, Christy's
Oh,
gonna,
gosh.
you just got the evil eye.
Nice job.
So,
Yeah.
it's gonna depend. I mean, again, this is not going to be, the caseloads are gonna grow. Right now, I mean, the caseloads of these individuals will be relatively small, and then it'll grow. So that gives us the much more flexibility than we've had in the past. We've tried to use one staff member across 3 schools. Really
Doesn't
not
do the
appropriate.
Well, there aren't too many people trained in Wilson anyway, are there?
No, but we did have a good candidate pool. We had about 6 or 7 people who were viable
No, it's
candidates.
okay.
Aaron had a question.
No, I'm
Well, Mrs. Raccio?
Yes, so you talked about the K to 12 teachers, and you talked about the representing the district for special ed students.
Yep, or for any students going into the process, 504, special ed, any,
Okay, so I'm in the middle. So how can we use, and I'm sure you've already thought of this, how can we use Literacy How for the interventionists who might be tier 2, tier 3,
They're
as far
part
as
of it.
looking at
it's,
the norms for how long a student
yep,
stays
it's
in
general,
intervention?
I said there's 3 groups of people that are getting trained, general ed, special ed, and interventionists. I called out all 3.
Okay,
So there'll be, in the cohort of 30, the initial cohort, we'd like to try to get a mixture. So we represent those 3 buckets, and then the next year bring up another 30 representing those 3 buckets. We're also gonna be looking for Literacy How, with our curriculum coordinators to do some training for parents, or informational sessions for parents too.
they do
um,
great
so-
parent training.
So trying to
Awesome.
put it, but it's gonna be interventions as well. It's the 3
Okay.
buckets.
Okay,
What were those 3
Thank
buckets
you.
again?
The special ed, general ed teachers, and interventionists. Because we need to have that consistency so that
Exactly.
everybody knows the same thing. That's why the first job is to set the philosophy of reading and what does it mean? Because we're still trying to get people to understand that it's not about a program. It's not about giving them, going to buy another $50,000 program and thinking it's going to teach the kids. It's about the approaches.
Other remarks? I would just like to say, because I've been pretty vocal about concerns I have with the PPS department, and I want to thank you for the thoughtful planning in this document, because it was a difficult year for the administration due to the absence of the PPS director. And that was a hardship but I think it provided us with an opportunity to really look at some of the things that I thought were a concern, and I think you thought were a concern as well, about what may be going on that was positive and maybe needed some improvement. And so in looking at the document, I think it gave administration an opportunity to look at this with a fresh look, and to look at some new good ideas and initiatives. So I think that's really beneficial for our students. And I know it was not an easy year, and some of us were coming to you with a lot of concerns that were brought to us from parents, but I think this goes a long way in addressing some of those concerns. So thank you
Absolutely.
so much.
No, we appreciate it. Just a couple of other just quick things on special ed. They're moving over here, so if parents are looking for Flo and anyone else, they will not be over at Fritz. They're moving into the personnel conference room. So there's going to be 3 PPS secretaries over there. The 4th PPS is going into the business office because she's going to be doing everything business. And then the director's going back over here. And then where Carrie and Betsy were in curriculum, that's going to be where Donna, Lisa, Patty, and Tammy will be. And then Carrie's moving into my office. We're all shifting around. So everybody will be one happy family. PPS will be at central office come actually next week, which is scary, next Monday. We're going, I'm up on the roof. There's an Italian joke about that. But the thing is that there's, no, it's
Okay, clearly I don't
it's
know.
not inappropriate. It's about
Okay.
when grandma passes, they say, "Oh, she's up on the roof." So,
Right.
but the thing is that we also are going electronic. As part of our strategic plan last year was to purchase a system to go electronic. So all PPS files will be going electronic. They're getting scanned in now. We are going through and purging the ones that could go according to state guidelines. Those are all getting shredded. We did the announcement in all the different areas. So a lot of the files are going. So we're moving. And I have to say, again, Karen and Dominic, they found the system, cut rate price, phenomenal system. They're working very hard. I don't think they ever want to look at a paperclip or a staple again or a scanner, but a lot of positive work, and it allows every person to have a file to pull up on the student, an electronic, basically electronic cabinet, filing cabinet for each student with their IEP from the first time through all their psychological evaluations, their outside evals, all in there so that you don't have to go to the paper file. So that really is a huge savings, and it wasn't expensive.
How many years do we keep those files?
Well, a student in
have to
special
be graduated.
education, you have to keep them, 6 years after they leave the district. So what we were doing is if they left the district in kindergarten, we were keeping them until they were they would have graduated and then 6 years behind.
Yeah, no.
But no, we only needed to keep them until they were would have been in 6th grade, and then they could have been discarded. So we have about 3,000 files that are getting destroyed this year, that we didn't need to keep. And it was nothing, it was a better understanding of what we needed to accomplish in that scenario. So that is happening. So I just wanted to share that with you. All right.
Any other remarks on this special education programming?
This is awesome, thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item C, presentation of the Goodwin Community College Partnership.
I'm just going to stand out of the way so you can see it as well. And Rob Cody would have been here tonight. Rob would have been here, but he was invited to participate in an activity, so I said, you go do that. So the Goodwin Community College, some of you might have heard that we were working with Goodwin Community College to try to offer advanced manufacturing opportunities for our high school students. I am proud to say, and I put in my Friday memo to all of you, that our students in our pre-engineering advanced manufacturing class this year, our students who are this group of students received a certificate from the state signed by the Department of Labor saying that they have credentials now to take with them when they leave our schools to go into the world of work. So this was huge. We're one of the few school districts that are doing it this way. Most districts are going to a state community college and asking them to offer the services and pay for them. the district pay for them. We're doing it in-house. This is not costing our students or our district anything, except I do need a little money for 3 machines, but we'll get to that. So it's costing us a little money, but it's only a one-time purchase. All right. So the fact is that I just want to share, this is Goodwin Community College. If you don't know this, it's in East Hartford. This is a rendering of their new Advanced Manufacturing Center. So they're taking their old Advanced Manufacturing Center, they're revising it and building it out. They have what's called eCamp, which is a certification. It's basically a associate's degree that students get to be able to do to go into manufacturing. So our relationship with Goodwin is on site in Wallingford. However, our students would have access to the programming at Goodwin if they chose to do so. So that's why we showed this. Craig was going to be here this evening. Unfortunately, he had graduations to attend from Goodwin, our connection. But the reality is we wanted to share this with you to show that our students would have access to this programming if they chose upon graduation. The key to our program, there's a lot of words on this, but the key to our program is that in the fall, we would have a blended learning opportunity where our students who are taking our present classes that match with the curriculum for Goodwin would be able to get accredited courses for to transfer to Goodwin Community College and to work towards the credentialing. We're going to have very limited courses the first year because it's a scaffolded approach. It's not a one-year opportunity. We have to grow our programming as well as grow our staff. As I've shared with you before, we're working with AARP to have our staff work with retired machinists and retired advanced manufacturers. But Goodwin, the benefit of this relationship is that their professional staff is going to be mentors to our teaching staff. So they're going to review our curriculum. We're going to actually use their curriculum, which is already written in Understanding by Design format. So it'll come to the board for approval. And they're going to basically get our staff to the level where we don't have to, again, like some other places are, pay for others to come in to teach these courses. Our existing staff will teach these courses. And our staff is very excited about this. They, as I shared with you at a prior meeting, they met with a lot of these individuals and they said it was one of the best PD that they've ever had. So the idea again is that there will be an opportunity to serve the students 9-12, blended learning approach. It'll grow over the years. We also have a proposal which when we come back to you with the next phase of this, probably next spring, is to bring it down to middle school. So actually push the envelope further and bring it down to 3-5. Not where it'll be as prescribed, but just getting the students to have more access to professionals with this high level of understanding of STEM, because it's not just about manufacturing, it's really all of the different elements of STEM. So what our students in 3 years' time, most likely, and it might actually be 2 years' time, could graduate if a student chooses with 15 college credits at no cost to them. So 15 credits at no cost to the student or the family or the district. These would be taught by our teachers. These classes that we have here, Introduction to Manufacturing is already the course we offer, so that's the 3 credits that they already get. Principles in Manufacturing Math, that's something that we're working on. Their curriculum, we're Christy's shaking her head. We're starting it this summer to create that course. The technical drawing, we already have a course that we believe, as long as it aligns with the curriculum that they have, we technically, no pun intended, we can give credit for that and they could accept that. The CNC machining, you'll notice there's 2 asterisks. That's where we would like to purchase the equipment that I'm going to share with you because it takes it to a whole nother level. And then the materials and processing in manufacturing is another course. So this would be an opportunity for students to enter this pathway and take these 5 classes and graduate as a senior with 15 credits. Now, again, as I said, next spring we'd like to come to you with actually an additional set of credits that they'd be able to graduate with in the future to end up with a associate's degree by the time they graduate.
So,
Can they,
no, I interrupted you.
All right.
will they be
Go
able to
ahead.
transfer these credits to just about like any school?
Middlesex Community College, Housatonic Community College, Gateway Community College, Central.
Okay.
So we're looking at all the articulation agreements. Middlesex was just at our STEM steering committee today, and I shared with everybody that we're doing the Goodwin connection. The CPC program, which is it's a program where you have to have an articulation agreement. We will be able to put that in place because if we're certified with Goodwin, then we're able to get the certification with the others. The other thing is that Goodwin is also a certified pre-apprenticeship program. So even we already are, obviously, by our students, what we've been able to do, but it only adds a layer of support and a layer of connection with the outside groups.
Mrs. McKay?
Yeah, I'm just curious, this example of the 15 credits, so if a student was able to achieve that, what year would they need to start integrating that into their
Well,
programming?
that's what our work is right now. So we have to figure that out. We're backing into it. So most likely they could start. We're anticipating they'll start at least with one course in sophomore year,
Okay.
and then finishing up in junior and senior year. So
Okay.
taking one and then 2 in the junior year, 2 in the senior year.
Okay, thank you.
It could be junior and senior if you want to
Right,
be really aggressive,
right.
but that's why we're backing into
Well, I
it.
mean, I guess, would, like principles in manufacturing math, would that replace a requirement, a math requirement?
Yes.
So
That would-
there is overlay, so I don't know about the other courses. I don't think that they would necessarily replace.
That would be the key
your
one
core-
that could replace a
Yeah.
graduation requirement.
Right.
And that was why when we brought forward to you, and Christy and the group brought forward to you the idea of having the 4-year or the 4 credits of math at the high school, we said, we're working on things.
And that's the
And
one
that's
that-
one of those things.
Yeah.
We have other things that are being worked on as well, but this was one of the areas that could fit
But in
that.
terms of graduation requirements, the
That would-
only one, that's the one that, of all those courses.
Well, remember, there are the elective courses that are
Right.
required, so
Got
that
it,
would
right.
tie
But I
in.
mean, I'm thinking of, the core courses.
Correct.
The only one, and I'm not saying this in a bad way, I'm just want to clarify in my mind, the only one that might be transferable is the principles in manufacturing math.
Correct.
That, besides electives.
Besides the electives,
yeah.
and then it depends, there's the next layer of courses that we're not ready to
Oh,
share.
I gotcha.
Could might have some
cover
science
others.
elements
That's
to
fine.
it.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs.
Oh,
Corso?
You got an
Oh.
arm waiver over there.
Oh.
It's not so much an elective, it fulfills the STEM bucket. So if you recall back from the fall,
Yes.
you have, I think it's 9 credits in that, so that those, will fit
Gotcha.
within there.
Yep.
Because the student has to have that certain amount of credits in
Yep.
there. And then the math one also could
Double-
potentially
double
either
duty.
double up
Yeah,
with
double
math
duty.
or
Yep.
STEM.
Yep.
So
Thank
as
you
Ms.
for that.
Latours just said, much more articulately than I, 12 of these 15 credits could fill the graduation
STEM,
requirement.
The STEM.
Well,
And
the
they-
graduation
They
requirement.
could get their certificate.
Yep.
That's
And
for
they would
their-
only
their-
be,
Their STEM certificate, right? I mean, is that what we're
well,
talking about?
technically. And there's also the states now working on trying to figure out, because the other states have given different levels of credentialing. So this would also situate that student to
Gotcha.
get something from the state. And again, when these are 3 college credits, so these
Yeah.
would be only 1
So-
credit for high school.
So they're, I don't know if this is the right way to say it, double dipping in the sense that they're getting high school credit, but also college credit.
Correct.
That's what I mean by double dipping.
Dual enrollment.
In a dual enrollment.
Yep.
Well said, Tammy. Then double dipping, that never sounds good, double dipping. But thank you for.
Yeah, the dual
clarifying
enrollment
that.
factor,
Okay.
similar to what you would have for your ECE, UConn classes.
Gotcha. Thank you for
Where it's
that.
able to transfer.
Mrs. Corso, followed by
Those
Mr.
were all
Votto.
those were all my.
Oh, sorry. Hey, I feel good about that as an
Nine,
educator and
yeah.
a
There you
go.
guidance
Counselor, a school
counselor. I
counselor.
feel good like I hit all the key
I was
points.
just gonna say that the 9 STEM, that 1 math, I would assume would cover the one of the 4 math credits, and then there's 5 STEM credits left, and I would think all of these fit in,
Yeah.
Yeah.
in there,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
within our graduation.
So what flexibility for our students?
Big time.
Yeah.
Mr. Votto?
So, oops, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, go for it.
So right now, we don't have any of these courses. There's
No,
some-
we do.
have some.
We have one, we have the first one. We have, we have Introduction to Manufacturing. The technical drawing we're looking at, we have to get audited. On the next slides in your packet, I have listed the descriptions of the courses. So what we have to do, it's a very I have to say, it's a very, very stringent process, which it should be, where they have to take all of our curriculum documents, they have to look at our assessments, and they have to match it up to make sure that it has the same rigor as they're willing to accept. So we're in the process of finalizing these. The idea would be that by the end of next year, we would be ready to launch these courses for the fall of 2020 with our present staff. And then we're going to share with you at the end of next year what we want to do in the next phase, which is get the students additional credits towards a degree.
Mrs. McKay? Oh, sorry.
Okay.
I didn't know.
Wasn't done, Mrs.
I'm sorry, Mr. Votto, please excuse me.
I have an issue.
Only one?
He's double dipping.
I'm definitely-
Ah, you like that.
So their people are gonna come in here and train, and
Yep.
then to our teachers. But will that obviously will be prior to 2021?
Correct. Yep.
And that'll take maybe a whole school year to do that, or?
We're looking at over the course of the professional development days as well as the embedded PDs. That's why the piece of equipment that we're asking to purchase, the 3 pieces, is so essential to get now, because we can do a higher level of training quicker, because we're able to then get the teachers using the system and also getting the students, because when their professors come in, they're not just going to do work
Right.
with our teachers, they're going to work with our kids.
But basically, our teachers could know enough to teach some of these, but we have to make sure we match their curriculum.
Yes, and it's
They
making
have to
sure.
blend correctly.
Correct. And the thing is that the requirements, the teachers have to have certain levels of masters, all these different
That's true,
areas.
all right.
So the thing is that the state, we brought to, and Rob and I brought to the attention of the state that not all community colleges were divvying out the credentials the same way. So we brought everybody here 2 years ago in January. I believe it was January 25th, 2017. We brought everybody here, and we are 18, and we sat in this room and we found that Three Rivers was doing it differently than Middlesex, which was doing it differently than Housatonic, which was doing it differently than Gateway, and I liked what Three Rivers was doing. And I'm not trying to be disparaging towards others, but it was a little bit more forgiving to our teachers to be able to be credentialed. And we brought the Board of Regents person in, and then a memo was issued. And so now everybody is kind of working under the same guise. So our teachers will be more highly qualified and credentialed than they would have been a few years ago. And the rigor of these programs only increases their capabilities. So we're giving them the professional development that we need to, but we know that we have a really good team. And they're really excited. When they saw the equipment that we're bringing to your attention tonight, they're like, Rob was like, I never saw them so excited. They're like, well, we can move this wall, we could do this, they're excited.
How you doing, Mr. Votto?
All right now.
Okay. Mrs.
Thank you.
McKay, followed by Mrs. Corso.
So just a really quick question. The technical drawings and specifications, is that dramatically different to our CAD programming, or does it replace? How does that
No,
work?
it's a modification. So that's where like I said, Rob has given them our course outlines
Right.
or our course curriculum. They're doing a cross-reference, and then we'll meet again to see what they would agree
So we
with.
would would we offer just one version of technical drawings?
Correct.
What was our CAD will become this?
Yeah, and some of the
Got it.
courses,
That's
and the
fine.
teachers, we've discussed this, and they understand. We might have to sunset some courses
Yeah.
that are not, they're no longer relevant to the career pathway.
And I think that's really important to make that point, that, just because you're sunsetting something, you are replacing it.
Oh, absolutely.
With an upgraded version that's more relevant, if you will.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mrs. Corso?
Are we gonna be able to offer these courses at both high schools?
What we're doing is presently, yes, the equipment that we're purchasing right now is only going to go at Lyman Hall. And students, that's something that as we get into the next phase of the program, we're going to have to talk about as a board throughout the course of next year, because it might have to be similar to the CNA or to culinary, and have the students have to come over from Sheehan, because we can't, the equipment that I might as well fast forward to.
We're
The
all
equipment
in.
We're waiting for
is,
the price tag.
The equipment is 3
Right.
machines at $30,000 each, so it's $90,000, which we do have the funds to do that with this year's budget, or this present school year's
So would that
budget.
be our 1%, or?
Unencumbered funds that we would
Unencumbered
put the
funds,
purchase
yeah.
order in tomorrow. So we have them in
Tomorrow?
place. Well,
Got it ready to sign.
probably next Tuesday after you officially approve it.
Yes.
But the reality would be is that they would be at one site. Space-wise, Lemon Hall makes the most sense at this point. There are other pieces of equipment that we might want to pursue down the line, but through some partnerships that, depending on how we flesh the program out, and if we have one high school or two high schools, then we could determine. But this is one of those programs like medical careers that one location is probably going to be your best and most efficient way of handling it. So right now, we can run the classes at both high schools, but at the point where this machinery is going to take it to the next level of opportunity, then we have to plan for that.
Mr. Ross?
Yeah, the 3 machines, can you tell us more about what they are and do?
All right, now you're asking me to go well above my capabilities, but basically they're high-tech CNC machines that allow the students to program, to make certain parts, but it's much more than your traditional CNC machine. It allows them to get into the coding piece as well as the production piece, and it's light years ahead of what most schools, comprehensive high schools, have. This is what you
That's
would.
key,
We
comprehensive.
reviewed this technology, and it was actually ironic because Goodwin, we asked them for a recommendation, but we did our own research. And what Rob, I shouldn't say we, Rob did his own research, and he went to all the other community college programs because we want to make sure that we're not setting students up for only success at Goodwin. As was mentioned earlier, we want to make sure this is transferable to other community colleges, and they all recommended the same piece of equipment.
No, I was just curious, is one a milling machine, one a lathe, do you know
There's a
that?
combination, yes. And we have lathes already, but this is taking it to a different level. I can get you the better write-up from a more highly intelligent person than I in this area, from Rob, if you'd like. But this is out of, I'm sorry.
No, that's right,
I'm the one who just kind of pulls the partnerships together.
because I was a machinist for a number of years, and I'm looking at the machine and I can't figure out what it does.
It does a lot.
Yeah, okay.
Mrs. Corso?
And it
I was
won't-
gonna say, I just saw them run at Housatonic. I went to see Housatonic, and I saw these machines in action. And they do multiple things, and then there's additional ones that will do like a 5-way cut. I think these machines are probably doing 3-way cuts. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
And then there's other ones that do the 5-way cut. And our students are learning how to program them to cut in certain ways to cut out different parts. That's what I got from it. And I'm not a machinist, I'm just a school counselor, but I went and visited a program down at Housatonic that has all this equipment.
And from what I understand, the coursework that we're developing, and that it's already been developed by Goodwin, is that the student, you actually see the process. So they start with simple cuts on simple items, and then it works up to a much more refined level. The piece that Aaron just spoke about is that we're adding, and it was recommended, there's a component that plugs in that's a computerized programming component, which allows the students to do the coding. Because you don't have to have that piece, but that takes it to the higher level coursework. And it gets them into to other areas. If they don't want to go into manufacturing, it has them into other areas of science, which is key. So this is going to be, as you can imagine, a recommendation that when we get to the rest of the budget or the board meeting tonight, we would highly recommend that the board make this commitment. These are items that they're not affixed, so if we have to move them, they can be moved, so I don't want to get anybody nervous. It's not like, oh, we're dumped this money and it can't be moved again. But this really does take us a step above others. And it's a good seed opportunity for the future of this program. And as I said, we'll be back either during the course of the year or definitely next spring talking about the other levels that we've put out there for a partnership. We don't see this just as a high school opportunity. We see it as a middle school and elementary as well.
Mr. Ross?
Just from our maintenance person, do we have 3-phase electricity over in the building?
You'd have to.
All schools have that.
There you go. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
You'd have to.
Mrs. Corso?
Is Goodwin College, because I think this is important for the public to know, projecting like how much kids are gonna make if they come out of high school and get into an engineering career? Are they giving us a projection of like an hourly rate or a yearly salary?
It depends. They do have some projections. It depends on, to be honest, where they're going to work, like anything else. But on average, you're looking at the $20 or above an hour rate, plus benefits, matching 401k. And the key thing is, and this goes back to our companies in town is it's also course reimbursement for future growth. We want to make sure that these are careers, they're not jobs. And that's a significant factor. And, you know, Goodwin right now has a somewhat of a I don't want to say exclusive, but a strong partnership with UTC. And obviously we heard the news that UTC is only moving its administrative team out of the state, not the production. The production's staying in state, which is where the key is. So we also open a lot of doors for our students in that regard by being affiliated with Goodwin. They have incredible opportunities. We already talked with Craig. Would he be willing to get us some of the UTC people in here to interview our students, to talk to them about interview skills? And he said, that's a no-brainer. That works out perfectly.
Mrs. McKay?
So, you know, I know are you done, Erin?
I was just
No,
gonna say,
go,
I think
go,
it's
go for it.
important that we understand that we can have our students graduating high school making $20+ an hour without overtime, without a night shift, and I think that's really important that we can do that for our students. For students that maybe don't want to go to a traditional college or don't want to take the traditional path to get a 4-year degree, that we can start them off this way, and I think it's really helpful and really beneficial, and it's a really good thing that we're doing for our students.
So we heard today at our STEM meeting that, you know, from the chamber's perspective, and we do know, it's not a big secret, that a lot of these manufacturing companies, specifically in Wallingford, sometimes target themselves to more like the 26 to 28-year-old because they want a little bit of work experience, a little bit more maturity. My question is, have we talked to manufacturing in town to not exclude, I guess, how do I want to ask this question?
It's a little different because these students are, and this is what we heard, these students are coming with a higher level
I
of
get
skill.
that. I just want to make
So-
sure that, yeah, that's what
And
I
I
want to
think
know.
that the thing is that what we were talking today
So-
about at our meeting was more of the cold call.
Right.
A person going into a job fair
Right.
and saying, I suddenly want to go into manufacturing.
Right. These kids have been vetted. These
Correct.
kids have made a significant effort
Correct.
based on,
Because
they've gone through the program.
And remember that this is also part of this program is that they'll be doing 100 hours of paid pre-apprenticeship.
Right.
So they'll have 100 hours of time that is important because that also goes towards their credentialing.
Right.
Like nursing, like we know with the nursing and the pinning, these are all elements that only increases, going back to my currency value of the diploma.
You know how I feel
It
about that.
only increases that currency value. So these are different candidates than the ones that
And
are
I
being
know,
spoken about.
I think that's really important to clarify that
Because
point.
to Aaron's point, these are very different.
Right, right. But the fact that these students are going to be graduating from us with such a high level of way higher commitment and exposure to manufacturing than, say, a 25-year-old who's been kind of, you know, even might have gotten a college degree, but have not just found their niche and, you know, trying to figure out where to go. That's a totally different individual than a focused 18-year-old who's shown the commitment and gone through the program and gotten the certificate.
Correct. I would say it's very similar to the students who graduate from our ag science program.
Yep.
Who have a very in-depth passion. And also our students who graduate through our hospitality program and have gone through all the years.
Right.
Some of the students who go right into the
But
world
even
of
our
work
CNA program
have-
too is
and
the same
CNA.
way too.
So it's when
That
you have a true
commitment,
pathway,
yeah.
and that's what we're trying to really foster.
And I love
here.
the fact that we're trying to instill it as young as our third graders over time to recognize this is an option for you. And,
Yep.
you know, a third grader's not thinking about college or careers, but it's planting seeds.
Yep.
And it's just recognizing there's options out
And
there.
you're a perfect segue into our next presentation.
Glad I
when
could do it
we
for
get
you.
to it. So any other questions about this? And again, I cannot say enough thank you to Rob Covey for all of his hard work on this. He's done a remarkable job amongst many other things. All right.
All right, so no further questions on the Goodwin Community College Partnership. All right.
Do you need anything, any?
Just
Just a presentation?
I mean, yeah,
It's just
do
a
we need to at some point approve, or is it just the curriculum that would come to us, or?
You'll get the approval
Over
of the
time, is that what
curriculum.
that, okay.
And then the articulation agreements are usually done by us.
That's fine,
So,
just want to be clear.
all right, so now, this is where I have my team here, because we wanted to share with you our work on the Center for Innovation and Design, and that is the Australian partnership, and we're saying where STEAM meets space. And this is the partnership that we talked a little bit about, and I sent something to board members out, and I just want to pass out this presentation. So there's 2 documents I'm going to be giving you.
Mm-hmm.
So, so I just wanted to share, and we wanted to give you an update because we are going to begin work on this project. So this all ties together because, as Roxanne said, we continue to have our STEM steering committee as part of STEM Town, which you all, I hope you all read the article in the Harvard Business Journal, which was very complimentary of the work that the district is doing and the town is doing. As part of our trip, as we brought to you before, Christy Medancy and I traveled to Australia in February, and as part of that trip, we were fortunate enough to travel to VSIC, which is the Victorian Student Science Education Center. And this center does exactly what we want to do in Wallingford with the areas of math, science, technology, engineering, manufacturing, all those different areas. Thank you. So this center really made us very excited because it really allows us to explore this in a different way. So what we've done is we're fortunate that we are going to be collaborating with this center, as we have shared with you before. And our overall goals of developing our own center, you can see here, is we want to still continue to really focus on design. We want to make sure that we increase engagement and knowledge while leveraging technology. We want to provide ongoing student involvement from K-12. This is a K-12 center, and create a hub of authentic learning while having a space for professional development. The center, just to remind you, Fritz, where special ed is vacating, it's a 2-floor structure, it's separate entrance. That's going to be the Center for Innovation and Design. So the first floor is to be renovated to incorporate robotics, as well as some other activities that I'm going to have Kate and Christy speak to. The second floor, the basement, is going to be renovated into the exciting aspect, which is the surface of Mars, for the students to actually take a virtual trip to Mars and do research, incorporating students K-12. So the space, we're in the process of identifying the space upstairs and renovating it. It's just basically paint. We are going to be painting a lot because it was an elementary space, and we are going to really we have to do some new flooring. But the idea is that this program will allow our students to really expand their understanding of STEM, but embedding it within the existing curriculum. This is not a new program. This is not new curriculum. This is working within the existing curriculum to take units that we are already teaching and enhance them. But this is not a field trip. This is actually part of the curriculum. So there's pre-teaching, there's visit to the center, and then there's post-teaching. In some instances, we were talking with the Australians, and they use it as their summative assessment. So they go here, and this is where the students they get their final assessment of what they're doing. This document I shared with you is really the overall goals, which you see here, and then there's some short-term and long-term. I'm going to turn it over to Kate O'Donnell to share with you the first short-term goal, which is for January. We're trying to launch this in January. We're hoping this space, Mark's working on this, to have it cleaned up so that we could start our our Vex Robotics in the fall. But by January, we're going to start with the Tickle My Droid program.
What's that love say? So I've been working with our elementary infotech teachers to look at the Tickle My Droid as a course that comes out of VSEC. They're giving us their curriculum to teach. So I've been working with the elementary infotech teachers to figure out how does it fit, where does it go, and it fits in perfectly with their coding unit. They were like, oh, yeah, absolutely. This is exactly what we do. It's just a new tool and vehicle to use it. So the Sphero Spark it's a little sphere. It's a little robot, and Tickle is the app, if you search for it, that they use to do the block coding. So what the kids would do is they would learn how to use the Spheros to code them using block coding on iPads that we already have within the program. And then when they would come to the Center for Innovation and Design for their final experience, they're going to have to apply the skills they've been learning in the coding to now they're going to have a big vinyl surface of Mars on the floor with foam mountains, and they're going to have to map from one place and go to the next place, and they're going to have to code the robots to go there. And it preps them for the next experience that they would have in middle school and high school, where they can code a Mars rover. So all the skills build from one level to the next. So this was our first one that we felt was such a perfect fit for the curriculum that we could go forward with this starting in January 2020.
The key thing is that all of this has been, the advantage to our partnership is that this is all given to us for free. So we're getting all of the technology, all of the curriculum that has already been written, has already been in existence for 5 to 10 years, has been vetted by tens of thousands of students in Victoria, and now they're working in Adelaide, Australia as well. The fun thing is that our students, Christy and I didn't get to experience firsthand, but our students going to Australia this summer will actually experience this, and they will actually experience this center, and that we're looking for them to be part of our steering committee as we move forward from their personal experience. So
what age group would you start with this, this Tickle My Droid?
3rd through 5th grade.
3rd through 5th, okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
The next program we're looking at doing is Expedition to Mars. So this will be on the same floor that we're talking about. The Tickle My Droid is in a large open area because it could be a full classroom. The Mars exploration or expedition has students in a smaller setting. There's 2 different classrooms. One is where the students are virtually, they're in on the space station itself. And so what they're doing is there's about half the class that are doing all racks of scientific experiments. There might be coding, there might be physical science, there might be some additional math activities, but they're all working individually, but they're getting their commands and they're developing their collaboration skills, because Mission Control, which is in the room next door, the actual replica of Mission Control, their classmates are giving them instructions. So they have to listen from Mission Control to take the instruction to apply them to the scientific experiments that they're experiencing. This is the space, and we were over there, and you're going to have the pleasure of meeting the 4 people that run this station, this center in Victoria. They're coming in October to Wallingford. So when we were there, Luca, one of the teachers, said this is the place where some schools have started taking their students as a summative, as the final assessment for a piece of the curriculum. So the actual experiments we could change out. Kate and her team and Christy and her team could change these out to match our performance tasks as related to the curriculum. So again, it's not putting in a different curriculum. It's actually supplementing it, but doing it in a really very, very authentic way and connecting those students in engagement.
It actually becomes more of an application of the skills they're learning within our curriculum. So we take what's in our math curriculum or our science curriculum, the skills and the knowledge that they're learning, the content that they're learning, and then think of a way that they could apply it within this program.
Yeah. So again, this expedition to Mars, is that also 3rd through 5th? And so just for everybody, more for TV land, who goes? How do you do that? Does every 3rd to 5th grader get to navigate? Can you spend a minute or two explaining logistically how this gets introduced district-wide?
Michael was telling us that the way they do it is because you have 2 different spaces, that you go 2 classes at a time per school. And so that's what we're talking about. If we did it in January, how would we schedule? So, you know, we still have to work out the logistics, which schools
Sure.
are going on which days, but we know we have enough days for all the schools to come 2 classes
So
at a
every
time.
3rd to 5th grader will get the experience of the Tickle My Droid and the Expedition to Mars at some point. And it's a building block, 3rd, 4th, 5th, or how does that
Yes.
work?
Yeah, so the Tickle My Droid, the coding that they need builds, they already do coding over 3 years and have already structured it out. and
Okay.
Built what the kids need to get to that level. So it'll be a different experience, but it all builds to doing that Mars experience.
Great.
And they may experience one program within 3rd through 5th, not every grade level. And then the next program they would experience in middle school, and then it builds on for another program in high school.
So it's
So
really
it may not be
endless.
every single grade, but all of these programs span 3rd through probably 11th grade,
Gotcha.
where we can make sure that they hit them.
Yeah, so it's really endless how you can manipulate it or massage it for what age group sees what, but it's an option. Okay, got it. Thanks.
And then the last portion of the first floor that we'll have, our goal is to have renovated and open, is the VEX Robotics Center. As part of the Title IV grant that was written, we're working to have a teams at the middle school and the high school. So we actually have teachers who have signed up to be our facilitators, and we'll be soliciting students to be part of this in the fall. So this is actually going to need to get done the quickest. So I think we have a really good plan. We were over there today at Fritz with a recent graduate, or a graduate in 2005, and a recent honoree of the Sheehan Hall of Fame, Ryan Christensen, who is a spray paint artist, and he's recently done some great work for ESPN, and it's absolutely phenomenal. So he's going to take on doing some of the spray paint art for the main entranceway of the space, and then he gave us some good design tips on some of the colors that we want to use for the rest of the space, because we do want to make it look industrial. We want to make it look like a space station, so it's going to be your grays, it's going to be your blacks. We are going to put in a little orange in there, so it's going to be a real neat space, and so we're very fortunate. But the VEX Robotic, it was a perfect location because you need a lot of space and you need height, but you also need a ramp to get it out of the building, and there's a handicap ramp right outside that space. We could not have asked, and you could pull up a car or a truck because there's the loop right there by that room. It's a perfect space. I mean, it was so fortuitous to do that. So we're excited. Rob Covey is working on this with me. The grant was, I want to believe for a little over $40,000, and it covers the expenses for the materials and also for staffing.
So could we, like maybe in October, when Australia comes,
We're going to go
could
over
we
there.
go over
Yeah.
there and kind of maybe, have a meeting or whatever, or
Absolutely.
just do a visual?
Glad they send you to Mars.
Mr. Votto.
I didn't get that in there. I'm just thinking of the logistics of this
So would my husband.
this Tickle My Droid program. So if I'm a 3rd grader, am I gonna finish that in 3rd grade, or is it gonna be between 3rd and 5th that I do this program?
You're
Am I
gonna
following-
learn,
If I'm following the whole thing correctly?
yeah, they're gonna learn the skills from 3rd through 5th grade,
Okay, and
like they already do now. Like
So
this is
there's
just a shift in what they're already instructing.
but if I'm not a 3rd grader at Fritz, I'm at another school.
You're still going.
I'm gonna go there, but how is that gonna work out? Am I gonna miss a half a day to go there? Am I going to?
So what they do is
Or haven't you gotten
it's a
that far
full
yet?
day experience.
It's a full day experience.
And they do half a day in one and half a day in the other, and then they flip flop.
So you'll get both the Tickle My Droid
And the Mars.
activity.
In one whole day, they'll do that. It's just a 1-day thing?
Well, there's lessons.
It's a one-day culminating day.
Right.
So they've done lessons beforehand to prepare
In
them,
their classrooms or
and then they
whatever.
have follow-up that they do after this
That
one-day
clarifies a lot.
experience.
If I can remember.
It's not, the key thing is this is not a museum, it's not a science center where they go and, they're gonna have fun, but this is connected to the curriculum.
Now I get why you said summative before.
Yeah, so there's pre-learning, during, and post.
Okay.
And all teachers, this will be all across the district. So it's not just because you're on one side of town or another side of town. This is for all. So the IT teachers right now will teach the Tickle My Droid. The science teachers will work on the mission to Mars. So it'll be integrated. All right? So that's,
Mr. Votto? You're good? Okay. Okay, we have Mrs. Castelli, followed by Mrs. Raccio.
So I was just gonna say, what I think I heard you say was that this full day of activity is for the application of what they have learned.
correct.
So this is the activity, basically, to show, it's kind of like their ability to show that they've mastered the
Exactly.
skills. Okay.
And that's exactly what we're looking at. That's why I said summative, because
That's why
you
it's
can
summative.
actually, the teachers could, there's really, there is going to be some teacher facilitation, obviously, but then it also allows teachers to observe and see where the students are in terms of their learning and their mastery and their application of those skills.
So what if you don't master? I mean, I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer here, but.
Unfortunately, you might be left on Mars.
You know, they're left on Mars, and the parents might appreciate that.
Yeah,
No, I'm just joking.
So it's basically just where teachers can get the assessment, and then
Yeah.
obviously remediation would go back on in the
Gotcha.
classroom.
Mrs.
So these,
Raccio?
oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I think you answered my question. I was just wondering if it was staffed or if the teachers who go there will do the culminating activity.
It's going to be a combination. So right now, it'll be a coordination of our staff as we move forward. So this is the plan for as of January 2020. Beyond that, we just wanted to share with you a few things, and then they're like literally 1-minute videos just to kind of get you a feel for it. But Mission to Mars is really where you transform. That's where we're talking about transforming the lower level of Fritz into the surface of Mars, the actual surface of Mars. And what that is actually where students, half the class, again, it's where you bring a class and there's multiple activities going on, but half a class, and this is for freshman and sophomore, where half the class is dressed up as astronauts and they actually travel to Mars, and then the other half is mission control, and then they swap. And while they're on Mars, they're collecting scientific samples. So Mars actually has some hot spots to it, has some cold spots to it, and they're collecting that information. And then within that same location is a high-tech science lab. So they do the mission to Mars in the morning, and in the afternoon, they actually go into the high-tech science lab, and they actually analyze their findings. So so their specimens and their collection of data. So there's a lot there. Plus, this offers us to some other courses, the other space. No worries. So Mission to Mars is one piece, but then there's the chemical analysis. So this science lab can be used for higher analysis for higher science classes that we could introduce. And then also there's the next one, which is the quantum computing, which allows us to get into some of the physics and quantum physics. So it allows us to take our present classes and take them to a higher level. And again, all this curriculum, all the technology that we would need has already been done and would be provided to the district at no cost. And the professional development that go with it. And they also see us as an opportunity to develop some other programs. And the last one on here, and I'm so glad, there's two pieces. There's medicinal chemistry, which we thought was interesting to look at, and the last one was human bioscience. So this actually has the students doing some fitness for astronauts. So looking at their body weight, if they are in space, what does it take to be physically fit? What do you have to do? So there's a whole fitness center that we would establish with some areas there. So it was very fortuitous. I was going to come knock on your door tomorrow if you weren't here and say, see, I did care about you. So again, there's a lot of layers to this opportunity. This is just a fraction of the courses that we have access to through our partnership with the Australian, the Australians in Victoria. So this is very, very small. There's one that they're developing right now with CAN satellites. So actually students over a course of about 5 years would develop a satellite that would go up in a soda can, and then you would fly a drone, and the soda can would have different sensors in it, and you'd be able to then collect the data when the satellites fall and be able to do weather, do heat, do all different things from that. So we're on the forefront of a lot here, and we're very excited. I do want to state that I am going to Washington, D.C. this Thursday. The U.S. Department of Commerce is sending me to meet with our Congress people, as well as meet with the Australian consulate to talk about the partnership. And then I do have, and I won't say the name, but I do have a meeting on Friday with a large company to talk about potential donations moving forward. So this might start out as a Wallingford opportunity, but in order for us to gain some of the external partnerships that we'd all want, this might become a center for the whole state of Connecticut. So we'll take it one step at a time. We're not going to run yet. We're still walking. But we're very, very excited. And I can't thank Christy, Rob, Kate, Carrie enough, and Mark. I mean, Mark's come over a couple times, and I think I'm driving him nuts already. But the reality is, I can't thank everybody enough. This is really an exciting opportunity. It ties into everything else that we're doing. This is not an add-on, flashy, let's follow the light bulb type of thing. This is making it truly authentic. It speaks to going back to the initial innovation team's research, which said that the best way to have student performance increase was through engagement. And that's what this is about. It's about engagement. So I just need to state that. So I want to click off of this quickly and then just show the quick videos, and hopefully the volume works. If not, I apologize. It's more about pictures speak 1,000 words anyway. So this is... it's probably not going to work.
I'm gonna take that technology.
Oh, maybe there's not sound. So this is just, oops, sorry. And our students will be traveling to this center. This is where they would be doing the Tickle My Droid. We actually also will be looking for a university to help us build a replica of the Mars rover. That's actually what Mars looks like there. So this is what the students traveled to, and that's the rover. So that's one of the students. There you go. That's the professional development space. That's mission control, so you have the large screens with all your computers. That's the high-tech science lab. That's their center. It's gorgeous. That's not Fritz.
That's not Fred. We know.
So, again, that's just to give you a sample of what we're trying to shoot for. So.
I have to say, they could have partnered with anybody, and they're choosing us. And it started with Menzo, but it trickles down.
Well, no,
because
she was there on the trip, and they
if the meat
loved
wasn't on the
Christy.
bones, for his staff, it is all about everybody. I mean, you guys as a team, it's just so phenomenal to think about this partnership. And, again, they could have partnered with anybody in the world, and they chose Wallingford, Connecticut. So thank you for all your commitment and hard work, really.
No, and again, it's Christy,
just
Kate,
say
and Robin.
thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Castelli?
Just a question regarding some of this equipment that they talk about, the atomic absorption spectrometer, the
That's
UV
the
visible spectrum. Oh, that's the donation stuff from coming Friday, you mean?
No, there's going to be layers of donations. I mean, and we have to pick and choose as to what we want to do. The main things that we need for January is really the painting, and we're doing that. We have that within our control to do that. Some of the simple design work. We are going to be looking, and Karen already knows this, October is going to be fun for IT because we're going to be looking to download their software for the first version of Mission Control. So we're just going to need some hard drives to test it because we want to make sure that interfaces with our systems. It's not a big technology draw, it's just going to be some flat screen TVs, which we all know those are relatively not expensive, but we can make those work. And then it's the wiring, and that's going to be the key piece because what happens with that Mission Control, the one that the students are going to do in January, is that the room that they're doing these scientific experiments in has cameras so that Mission Control can see them. So we just have to make sure that talks, but we have all of their building specs We have all their drawings that we'll be working with Mark and IT on. So that's the stuff that you can't really buy. You know, and Mars is actually, it's done by a landscape design company, so we're gonna try to see if we can work with ag science students to help us with that. So,
Thanks.
Mrs. Corso?
I was just wondering, they're giving us all this stuff, what are we providing them?
what we're providing them is, they wanna, well, no, they wanna grow their programming. They wanna grow, their content. And they really have only dabbled in the K2 area. So they see us as a great partnership with our teachers, our collaboration. The other part that we're working with them on, to be truthful, is our workforce development that we've done so well with our pipeline program. They have nothing like that in Australia.
Got it.
So we're really giving back to them. I've already worked with them in that area. So that's why I'll be going to the Australian consulate, is to talk a little bit about the workforce development piece as related to this. They haven't done that yet, and that's an area that I think we could offer them that support.
Thank you.
Other remarks? I just have a question. Your logo on the front indicates where STEAM meets space. So I understand all the science, technology, engineering, and math. The arts part of it, are we capitalizing on that for our students, perhaps at the high school, who are very artistically inclined and can help to do some of this painting and decorating and?
We talked about it. I think that there's opportunities potentially. I think what we see the arts in this is that there's a lot of design thinking that'll come in as they're solving the problems. Because when you do any type of challenge, you have to have that artistic mindset. And we were talking about that today at our meeting that Kate and I had with Women in Innovation in Hartford, is that you can't lose sight of that. So that's where it's going to be really coming in. I think what we want to do is when the kids come back from Australia, the students who come, they're, as part of the steering committee, as I said, they're going to help us, and then we can talk about, okay, do we want to broaden the spectrum of students? Do we want to broaden the group to help us design the lower level? We're going to need, as I said, the ag science students. It's a great integration for them, and then identifying the other spaces.
I mean, I'm always looking for opportunities for some of our students that are gifted
Absolutely.
in some of the visual arts to participate,
Absolutely.
possibly.
Well, and that's the other thing is, going back to Aaron's question about what we can offer, they're looking to create new versions of some of their software, and I know they're going to want our student input because that's what they've done. The site is really exciting because it's on a high school campus. So VSIC is on Strathmore campus, and so when our students are over there, they're going to be able to visit that campus too. And the idea is that we have our partnership right now. We have a sister school partnership with Girton Grammar School in Bendigo. But we're not opposed to having two partnerships with also Strathmore School. And so the principal, we're trying to have her come over from Strathmore because Girton's coming over in March of next year with their Australian students, but having the principal from Strathmore come over in October with the team. So we could develop that connection. But Justin Marciano, who will be going on the trip this summer as assistant principal from Sheen, he'll be able to meet with the principal from Strathmore. But again, trying to contextualize it all, we agree. We want to tap into as many pieces as possible.
Could you just delineate who from our system is going?
Sure. This summer, we have myself, tour guide basically, and I'm sweating it out. And then we have Miss Latour, we have Miss Friend, and Mr. Marciano. And then we have 8 students. What's happening is the reason why we're doing this is, again, we have the partnership. We wanted to have enough chaperones, first of all, to meet board policy. But secondly, that during the day, Ms. Latour is going to go work with the Victorian Education Department. So she's going to get some professional development and get access to professional development in STEM as well as literacy, basically be able to pick their brains and get what she needs and grow from that, as did Ms. Medancy did in February. Mr. Marciano is going to be probably with us the whole time because we'll be going to a lot of high school settings, plus we're going to Swinburne University. So the students will spend a whole day, because remember, the students that are going on this trip are getting capstone credit as well as able to apply for their global engagement certificate. So they're actually working the whole week in Melbourne. Those students are going to school, they're coming up with their global impact project with their Australian counterparts, and then they're gonna have to come back and work with Ms. Moore, myself, and others to see their projects to fruition. And that's what you're gonna see the benefit of in March. When the Australians come over, they're gonna do their presentations. So you're gonna see the Australian presentations as well as our student presentations. And then Ms. Friend, we have her going out to visit some elementary schools while we're there, and seeing those, because it's a very different scenario. We're all in Bendigo together. The students are going to go to school for 2 days. We're going to be there going to school with them, and it's a 1st through 12th grade school. So we'll be able to go see all the different classes and connect.
Any other remarks on this presentation? Seeing none, we'll move on to item E, which is transfer authority approval. You all received a memo in your packet indicating that the superintendent is requesting that the Board of Education grant him in his capacity as the superintendent of schools authority effective June 18th, 2019, to make all transfers that will be required to complete the final financial report on the board's budget for school year 2018-2019. This is usually a pro forma type things. But if anyone has any questions or comments on this item? No? Seeing none, we'll take consensus. Mrs. Corso?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes,
Yes.
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 And yes, thank you. Item F, allocations of any additional unencumbered funds. We're having a handout. I suspect it might be for that machinery that we were.
Well, we have a variety of items. When you get the handout, we'll show you. As it is, every time this year we shore up accounts. It's difficult to get exact numbers.
I'm handing out 2 pages. The white page is what we're talking about. The yellow page is the approval from last month's meeting, just so, we know what we
Because you already had previously approved some items.
Right.
So the new items we're looking at is, again, the manufacturing equipment that I shared. We didn't budget because we went out in the middle of this year for the literacy consultant, the structured literacy, so we're budgeting for that. And then the other items, so those would be to look to expend prior to June 30th. So those are contracts that would go into place now, which that means that wouldn't be carried over to the 1%. The 1% that we're looking to allocate, or the money into the 1% account, the additional funds, is looking to allocate $100,000 for additional security upgrades. Because we continue to whittle away at that list, and we're doing some great things. Our administrators, that security team is incredible. And I have to say that the teachers and administrators on that team are fantastic. So we have the Securely system, as you know, we put in place this year. We're doing SILOCs throughout the schools. So those were pieces. We have cameras that are going to be going in, additional cameras, as was approved last year. The blue lights we're finishing up. And now this is about the entry systems. We had talked about doing the swiping the ID, but before they get in the building. So Karen and Mark and Dominic have done an incredible job looking into different resources. So we wanted to allocate some additional funds there. Then once we have that in place, nothing is ever perfect, so I don't want to mislead people, but we really have secured the perimeters pretty well. We've identified internal security. So not that we're ever done with security, but we're much farther along than most places. And we just got awarded, as I shared with you a couple of weeks ago, an additional security grant. So that helps defray the cost of some of the cameras. So we're still accessing resources. We had the large federal grant last year. We weren't eligible for it this year, otherwise we would have applied. But we have been accessing the resources. So those are the only items that we're looking to utilize additional funds for.
Mr. Ross?
yeah, just on the security entry, are we gonna have panic buttons at the entrance doors at all the schools?
Panic buttons,
Panic buttons.
whereabouts?
Oh,
are you-
well, just as an example, the greeter at Shan, at the front door. That greeter has a little switchboard there. If somebody's coming through the door, she's not gonna have time, or he's not gonna have time to look which button to push. I thought we were gonna have a panic button on
What
the
they're
wall.
going to have is they also have a laptop Most of them, the greeters have a laptop, and on the laptop will be the Silac software, which is the panic button.
So they don't have to look for it, they can just
No,
open the
it's,
laptop
it's,
and
ri-
push.
they'll have it'll be right there, so they could push that. So that acts as the panic button. And then that would put the whole building, because remember, we decided that we're giving everybody in the building
Right,
the ability to put it into lockdown.
yeah, okay.
Mrs. McKay?
Yeah, so this kind of going with the security entry systems at 10 schools, so what are the 2 schools that aren't?
Well, the 2 schools that aren't are the 2 schools that we have to do a little bit more structural engineering.
Okay.
The ones that don't have the vestibule. You need it, what we're looking at
Oh,
is you have to,
so
like
what-
Sheehan is a challenge right now because it doesn't have a vestibule. And then
Gotcha.
so you have a few schools, Sheehan and Stevens are pretty much our biggest
So those are
challenge.
your 2 that
Cook
Sheehan
Hill
and-
is a challenge, but we think we have a way around that one. But you have to, what we're looking at for gaining the entranceway is, like, for example, when you have the double door,
Right.
they'll get in they'll buzz in to get into the first set of doors, the outside doors,
Right.
the normal buzz-in system. Then they'll get into that little vestibule. The second set of doors now are locked. That's where they'll swipe their ID, their license.
Okay.
And then that'll go to the main office, which they'll then get a write-up and they'll get a review and say, okay, clear. And then the person will be buzzed in those doors to go pick up their name badge.
Gotcha. So it's Sheehan and Stevens that need the
And
retro.
Cook Hill too, but everybody else has it. DAG, all the other ones have a double door
Gotcha.
vestibule.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Votto?
Yes. When we first started talking about the security, I know he just mentioned, Ray just mentioned panic buttons. Didn't we talk about, I don't know if we settled it, somebody on the field having a thing around their neck or something?
No, because what we did is
I forgot what we
again, the
decided.
Silac system is it could be on their phone. So they'll have their phone and it's a panic button that they could activate there. They
So
could,
The gym teacher or whatever
Yep.
was outside will have
correct.
You're off, yeah.
they'll have to have their own.
Well, they also, because a lot of it's PE teachers, and he left, our PE teachers all got iPads, so they could work off of the iPad.
And they'll have that with them.
Yep.
Is there, we really never approved or, funding for more SROs.
That doesn't come from the Board of
Yeah,
Ed, that
not
comes
us.
from the mayor's office.
I know it does, but can it?
We've already been down this road, the mayor
Can't go
does.
down it again?
No, because we can't pay for them, it's a different line item. And because we can't hire our own police officers. I think right now, I think the officers have done a phenomenal job this year. And I think there's always opportunities for growth. I know I broached this topic, with the chief. I know that there are additional officers in the budget. I don't know where they fell in the whole review, but I know wherever possible, he has increased our hours. So what we did last year is once the dust settled on the budget, which it's almost settled, then he and I will meet again over the summer, and he meets with our 2 high school principals, our 2 middle school principals, and talks about, well, what could he allocate?
Okay. And going back to the swiping. So when the person swipes their license, the information goes to some kind of a computer somewhere?
Correct.
And gives what?
It gives initial security background check, and then it actually, then it'll issue an ID badge. And the ID badge, depending on the software that we get, it could be coded so that it turns a color at the end of the day, so they can't wear it if they try to get into the building again.
So every school's gonna have that?
Yes,
And does that have the person's picture on it?
yes,
Because right now, we just show our ID, but
correct. What schools have right now is that a lot of schools, not in our district, but in other districts have it, but you're already in the building. So it kind of defeats the purpose, because you've swiped, and now you talk about, taking everybody out, you're already in the building. So that was where our concern was, and Karen did a lot of research, a lot of the companies, we wanted to put this on the outside of the building and not have to deal with it, and they said, well, we
Yeah, that
can't
was a no.
guarantee. Yeah, they all said no.
have to put it in between.
You do
It has to be inside a
because
building, because of
they-
weather.
Environmental, right. They don't want it to be outside. These systems,
It's gotta
our
be a double
computers.
door system.
Right, it still has to be inside.
Well, that's what we were just saying, that not all of them did.
Sheehan,
So
Stevens,
I was
the-
looking at these numbers.
So the thing is that, we obviously gave a company something to come up with to maybe save money. But the reality is that we have to put it between the 2 double doors. So that's where we have to put in the lock systems for those doors, but we have to, and they've already met with the fire department. We can't do it as a lock, they call it a man trap, because we have to allow the person to get out of there. So the back door, once they're in, they can always get out. So if they choose, they get nervous and they decide they're not gonna come in, then they're allowed to get out of the building, which is fine. We don't want them in the building anyway.
So the next set of doors have to be locked.
Correct.
And the other thing I just want to add, it does check the sex offender registry. It also, which a lot of times, issues may come up from, a custodial issue with the student. So most of the systems have something in place where if dad's not allowed to pick the child up,
That's good.
you really don't want them to come in the building to
Right.
try to pick the child
Right.
up,
How long does it take for that to go through? I mean, does the
It's-
person have to wait out there 5 minutes? Or
No, it's pretty quick, I guess.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
it's fast?
I know Chester's using them. They installed them this year at some of the schools. Yeah, and quite a few schools are using
So the clerk
them.
in the office is gonna be the person responsible for reading this and making that determination that the person could come through?
It should flag it in the office and show them whether it's approved or not and print it out. So,
I don't believe
There-
it prints unless it's approved.
right. There's,
It won't print a name tag.
Unless it's approved.
Yeah.
right.
But I'm trying, it's not gonna put any extra responsibility on that person, or they'll be liable if they make a. So in other
No,
words,
because if a name tag isn't printed out, then the
then the
person's not
person
coming in.
knows they're not coming in.
Yeah.
Right.
They don't have to make the judgment.
They don't have to make
Yeah,
the
there's
judgment.
no judgment. No, it's not
No,
where
it
they have to
should
read
be
through
on
the
the
person's
record.
record and say, oh, no.
Right.
If it doesn't print out a name tag, then unfortunately, and there's protocols that the companies have, I'm sorry, but unfortunately, something's come back that we can't allow you in the building. It's not a good conversation or, probably gonna be a happy conversation,
But at
but,
least they're not in front of you.
I apologize for not paying too much attention to your other.
no, it's all right.
So there's 3 schools that still need to have those inner doors put in.
Yeah, we
That's
have to
gonna be
work,
done?
well, not in this 100,000, that's the next phase, because we have to do design work.
Okay.
So that's where
It's gonna be
Mark
that
needs
big
to
a
do.
deal, huh?
Yeah, well, because we added the vestibule, we added a back vestibule in the window project at Lyman Hall. It was very successful. I think the back of Sheehan will be easy. The front of Sheehan is the more challenging part. Because the front, it has the big staircase, and so we might be able to do something. There's pillars there that you could build out. It's just we have to look at that. Stevens probably won't be that bad. Cook Hill, we said we have a workaround, so I think we're good. The rest of the schools are all good.
That's nice.
Mr. Ross, and then Mrs. Corso.
I'm still, I don't mean to beat a dead horse here, but I am concerned about the people who are outside the building of ours, teachers, recess monitors. Recess monitors that I've seen don't have a laptop with them. They don't have
They have a
anything.
walkie-talkie with them, and so that's their
One
communication.
button, one button and done. They don't have to hesitate, they just push the button.
Well, they would say that there's an issue. They
Yeah.
report it to the main office. Remember, we're also getting the value of the other system that we're getting through the town is that we're getting the integrated radio system. So that's not going to be, the people on the field aren't going to have that radio, but that's going to be the main office. So as soon as that call comes in, God forbid, from a recess aide, then that walkie-talkie, which each principal will have, could immediately turn to the police, and they don't even have to worry about pressing the panic button. They could do both. They could press the panic button, but also then get right on the police frequency and call a lockdown.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Corso?
So, the software checks the criminal database, but say a parent brings in a restraining order, can the clerk go into the system and say, this person is now not,
Bless you.
eligible to pick their child up? Can the clerk go in and change things?
So there's a couple of different software packages out there, and first, just to correct, it checks the sex offender database. It doesn't, I don't believe it does a criminal background check, because there's certain laws around
Right.
doing that. But I believe most of them do have some capability of marking the records, so like a restriction.
Right, so we could go, or the clerks can go in and do that.
I believe so.
There's also the capability of some of the systems where we can use this for student attendance, correct?
Yes, so there's some where if the children are coming
Which
in
is
tardy,
a good
which I'm sure never happens, they can, instead of lining up at a secretary's desk, they can literally scan in and get their tardy pass. So we're looking for something, you know, when we get everything approved, that will integrate
saves
with
work.
Power School and, you know, put that attendance in there also. So that's the ideal.
Mr. Votto?
So it doesn't have the, or it can't check a person's criminal past? if
I
they
We're-
believe it can't.
No, I think that Karen's correct, and I misspoke. I think that it's somewhat, I shouldn't say somewhat, I think it's illegal for us to do that. I don't think we have the ability to do that.
Yeah.
So there are parameters that we still have to work within. It allows us to
The
do.
most serious thing, though. I mean,
True, but I think that the thing is, the reality is though, that, and I guess and unfortunately, we've had to go to a lot of workshops on these over the last many years, is that if you're putting up the idea of these things, it's going to make people think twice about having to go through all these layers. And I think that's really what, it's more of a deterrent in that regard, in that situation. Unfortunately, if a person wants to do something horrible, we all know that there's the likelihood that that could happen. But the reality is, it's to put in the barrier for that person who is not necessarily certain what they want to do. And the police, every consultant we talk to, every event that we go to on this topic, the more you could put in those, what they call it, perimeter controls, and that's what this is. The more you could put layers of perimeter controls in place, the better off you are. And it's a redundancy too, because you have a variety of layers, and you're trying to make it difficult where a person's like, okay, you know what, it's horrible to say, but it's not worth it.
But can't
It's
you
not
go online
perfect.
and see if a person, it'll say a person's been arrested for things?
No, you can't, you can't,
You got to pay for
you
a
could do
service for
it
that
through a
product.
service,
I think you can look for court cases.
court records. But you can't, again, you can't, just because there's a court record doesn't necessarily always mean that there's a disposition. And some court records are in abeyance, some things are in abeyance based on a variety of things. So again, the idea is that you have the sex offender registry, you potentially have it connecting to look at the child care or child custody matters. And again, it's another to be honest, it's a psychological deterrent.
Mr. Ross?
This $100,000 for 10 schools, so that's just to cover the scanner?
It's to cover the scanner and some software, and obviously we have to go out to bid.
Yeah, but it's not
So-
going to cover any construction? we
Not
have
the
to do.
construction.
Thank you.
Yeah, the construction, that's why those other, because that would be design work,
Yeah.
so
okay.
that's a totally different process.
Okay,
We'd
okay.
have to get together with the town engineer and such, and also fire marshal.
Any other questions on this? So then, what you're asking of us is that you would like to expend $90,000 for manufacturing equipment and $51,378 for curriculum structured reading consultant, for a total of $141,378 to expend prior to June 30th, and then move $100,000 to the 1% fund in anticipation of the security entry systems of the 10 schools. Is that correct?
Absolutely correct. Spot on.
Any questions or further comment on this?
Yeah, I guess we're short 18
get
grand,
that.
roughly.
Mr. Barone?
Confused.
Well, right now, we're not projecting to have enough savings, so
Right.
we know, well, we've got an estimate on it, so we have to find another $18,237 in savings before the end of the year to
So-
fully fund this.
Okay,
Hey.
so let me ask you this question, Dominic. Let's assume that 18, let's say we don't have it right now, okay?
All right,
Just say.
Yep.
Where are you going, what is going to be the shortfall? Where are you going to cut that?
What we would
where
cut
are
it
you
from
gonna-
is the security entry system, because
Okay.
we are getting money back from the grants. So we're kind of prepared to infill it, because we
Okay.
receive the grant funding and we get the matching funds. So we're trying to utilize, like we've done with other grants, but we put in here, and I'll be honest, I don't think we're gonna have a shortfall, because
It's fine.
as everything gets closed out at the end of the year,
Right.
there's always things that end
I
up-
just didn't know, I wanted to.
And that's why you give the transfer authority.
Right, exactly. No, I'm
So-
fine with all that. I just wanted to know what would be of the 3 items, the one that you're gonna say, you know, is, I don't wanna say suffer, but will take the hit. So it would be the security entry system if
Correct.
you were short 18. Okay.
Correct.
Any other questions about this? All right, we'll take consensus, starting with Mrs. Corso.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and yes, thank you very much. Next item of business is the maintenance facilities update.
Okay, the document hasn't been updated since last month. We do have quite a bit to add to it. I'm going to touch on a few things that you may have seen going on, being done in the system. We have quite a few sidewalk repairs and curb repairs, along with collapsed catch basins that have been repaired all over the system. Quite a bit of that work has happened at Sheehan High School. So we've done that. Obviously, this new program that Dr. Menzo's speaking about at Fritz, and something that we initiated was an online material safety data sheet system that all departments will be able to use. That's something that our warehouse man has volunteered to do the data entry for. So we've done our part, but we'll be looking for cooperation from all the other departments so we can have one set of documents, because right now it's fractured. The nurse has one, the science departments have one, and that's not the way it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be one binder or one set of binders in the main office available to all emergency responders and all employees, because anyone may want access to that. A teacher may want access to see what they've been exposed to or what they haven't been exposed to. So that system will update automatically every year. So once this is done, no one will ever have to look at this again, with the exception of adding new items, which is really groundbreaking, because the amount of hours that go into trying to get these things straight is astronomical. So any questions?
I do have a question. So to add an item or an MDS, what the material data sheets, what, will you be adding them? As you have different chemicals that are available in the system for cleaning or what have you?
We'll be doing the data entry for all departments.
Okay,
And some departments may only have 5, 6 items, but in the case of science departments and curriculum, there's 300 or 400 items probably. But once it's done, that's it. From that point on, if a department head knows they've removed something from the system, then we would remove that material safety data sheet. If they knew they purchased something, we would then add that material safety data sheet.
okay.
But, it's something that you have to update that every single year, because they're dated sheets. So a sheet from last year is not, it's dated for last year, so it's not going to be good for the following year. We've had problems in the past where we had, somebody report to a school for an emergency and find out that the material safety data sheet was 15 years old for a
Yikes.
fire extinguisher. So we're trying to get away
Okay.
from that.
Mr. Ross?
Yeah, just a couple things. What's the big project I've been noticed out in front of the maintenance garage? You've had that dug up for about a month now, it seems.
The fuel tank there,
I don't know, that's what I
that's
asked.
a replacement tank. And there's that, and there's a couple catch basins that were done, and part of the parking lot. Those were all separate projects.
Now, I noticed today, especially when I was going into Sheehan, one of the drains by the back entrance has grass growing out of it. Is it that plugged up that that's not going to drain?
I'd have to look at it, I don't know.
When you're just coming in the back entrance to Sheehan, when you're approaching where the buzzer is, there's a catch basin there. It's a narrow, long, and it's all got
Yeah,
8 inches of grass growing out of it.
I'm not familiar with that. And the back entrance, so
Yeah.
coming in from Highland?
No, walking into the school at the senior court. There's drains there.
Yeah,
Storm drains
we haven't
and-
had any requests or anything. I'll have to take a look at it.
Okay, thank you.
minor, whatever it is.
How, any update on the softball field?
No.
No, okay, thank you.
Any other remarks about the maintenance facilities update? Thank you, Mr. Deptula. On to the cafeteria report with Mr. Barone.
All right, more handouts. So I'm handing out the participation report, and I'm handing out a new H1 because the year-to-date meals sold did not carry over.
Match? Oh, okay.
Well, it didn't match because it didn't carry over.
Okay.
So the only
This is all
part
set.
is right here that
Get rid of that.
as far as H1, the comparison report, we had a good month. We had a profit of $13,791. We sold 48,815 meals. Our revenues were significantly higher. Unfortunately, our expenses were also significantly higher. I wanted to point out that we had about $19,000 more in federal revenue. And we also received our healthy foods check. We received that earlier this year. So if you look at the, under the reimbursement detail, you'll see under healthy foods, we received $12,400 more than last May, but that's only because we received it in June last year. But overall, we had a good month. Our deficit, our year-to-date deficit is right now $7,922. Last year it was about $34,000 this year. We had, we've sold more meals. We sold more meals probably 3/4 of the way through last month than we did all of last year. And we have sold more meals now than we did 2 years ago too. So the meals are, we're gonna be, we're at 373,000 at the end of the month. We're gonna certainly break 380, 390. So, the participation has been very good. The expenses have been a little bit of a challenge, but, it's certainly a little more optimistic than it was last year.
This is great news.
So, that's what I have on the financials. I thought I'd take some questions on H1 if we had any, and then.
Absolutely.
move on.
Any questions on H1? All right, we'll move on to H2.
H2 is really just the summary of H1, and if I could find it, I handed out a new H1. Thank you. I got it. And the H4 was a handout that was not in the packet. All right, so, thank you. The H2. The H2 really, I guess the interesting thing on this is that we're a little over 10% more in sales a day. And I get that looking at the far column, the per day variance on the right. And that jives with our participation that we've been talking about all year. That's been fairly consistent. The H3 is just a balance sheet that we provide to show, that we added this year to show the cash and really primarily show cash balances. Okay, and then H4 is the document I handed out that was not in the packet. That shows our participation, and this is really the worksheet that Dave provided, this new format, and that really just shows kind of what we have for participation, and we're, I looked at it as opposed to last May, and we're up about 1% from last year. But in aggregate, the high schools and the elementary schools are higher than they were last year. The middle school's a little lower.
Questions on H1 through H4?
Good job.
All right, why don't we take consensus on the cafeteria reports H1 through H4? Mrs.
Yes.
Braccio?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
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 And yes, thank you. And now we'll go to H5, which is the inter-school agreement and pricing for Holy Trinity.
So this is due at the end of the month. I met with the deacon. They want to continue the program, which we didn't think they were not going to want to. So we laid out the contract. I recommended a 5% increase across the board because we went up here in the district also. And so the pricing in it reflects new pricing, so it's 5% at all the levels except for the reduced, because that's set by the federal 40 cents. And the deacon was fine with that. And what I'm hoping to get is approval so they can sign it, and then we'll get it signed after, I guess, probably Monday's meeting here. And then we could send it to the state and take it off the table.
Do they have free and reduced there?
Oh, yeah, yes, they do. I mean, they only have a handful, actually, but they do have some, yes.
Other questions about this document?
So I think what you said was that basically it's the same amount that we pay the public school, the kids.
No, they actually pay a little more, but because we've increased ours, I thought we should increase theirs a
Oh,
little,
that's
so,
what you
yeah,
said,
yeah. The logic is that there's more work involved, they're not connected with our system, there's more manual, so labor associated with it.
Any other questions on this inter-school agreement? Seeing none, we'll take consensus. Mrs. Braccio?
We'll do consensus yes for 11 out of 10 pages. It's 11 pages, even though it says it's 10.
Oh. Okay.
Mr. Ross?
yes.
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 And yes, thank you. The next item of business is the financial report for the board for May of 2019. Mr. Barone?
Okay, thank you. So we laid out the, projection through the end of May, projecting a surplus of $1,231,785. It's an increase of approximately $223,000 from last month. And that's being driven primarily by the other accounts where, there's certain purchase orders that we're not going to utilize fully. We had significant savings in the cleaning services from the bid, and we have adjusted for that going forward for next year's budget. So we did make a significant reduction in cleaning services for the next year's budget. So we did address that. Those were the big drivers. Then we had some other increases in transportation, Medicare, and I guess I'll call it significant in utilities of projecting about a $25,000 surplus, and we were projecting a $1,000 deficit last month, and that's, I think the timing, some of that's timing on the oil. The oil and the electric are projecting good surpluses. The heat is, the gas is in a pretty good deficit, but, we're gonna try to rebalance those within those accounts next year.
Dr. Menzo?
I just want to make a comment just for people watching and potentially who get this document. The maintenance, the plan there in terms of the bids, those came in after July 1st, 2018. So there was no way for Mark and the maintenance department or the business office to know that there was going to be this savings because those bids came in after the approved budget after July 1st. So I just want to clarify that. That wasn't a miscalculation. That wasn't anything other than the fact it was the timing of the bids, which tend to open up over the summer, and they came back obviously much more favorable than we had thought. And that's why Mr. Barone said that the adjustment was already made for next year, so we're not anticipating this next time this year, next year this time, because we've already adjusted our budget because those bids were for multiple years. So I just wanted to clarify that, just if anybody's paying close attention. I know that was my question. I'm like, what the heck happened?
Yeah.
And they were like, no, the bids didn't come in until after July 1st. There was no way we could know that they were going to be this low, but we already factored in it for the 19-20 budget.
And we've also made it, like on the transportation, we're showing a healthy surplus, so we did reduce that budget for next year our initial projection on that based on the activity, and we just refine it as we go along.
And that's been the key thing is, and when we brought to you how we got to the mayor's amount, we shared with you that we went through all the counts. We do that annually. Again, it's the team that does it. I mean, we sit on those Wednesday mornings, we sit and we perseverate over every single line on them. You don't dare touch Miss Latour's money. But the reality is,
Oh, she's one of those.
oh, yes.
boy.
But we love to take Miss Bayou's money when she leaves to go to the kitchen or something.
But she's a good shot.
Never go in the kitchen.
No.
Yes, Miss Latour and
I've
Miss
seen her
Miss
outside.
Bayou
You're always
are
You too. You're both always shopping.
sorry, I don't mean to.
So this document, the way I did it, maybe it was a little confusing, but when I came out with my projected subtotal, I took out what was previously allocated, and that gave us an additional 223,000. We're asking for a little more than that. We're asking for 241, and that's why there was that negative 18,000 on the other document, because that's just the way I formatted it out this time.
And then the munis just gives you the line by line.
Correct, that's just the
Description.
year-to-date through May with, the actuals that are in the system.
Any questions on the financial report for May 2019? Seeing none, we'll take consensus. Mrs. Raccio?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Yes. And yes, we've come to the
Which one? Yeah,
part
sure I did.
that we have as public comment, but there is no public here, so seeing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
We have the munis one.
Meeting.